Chapter 141. The man used spiritual energy as he spoke, and his voice traveled to every corner of the auction hall. The first item up for auction is a high-grade spiritual herb, known as the gemming grass. It's the main ingredient for the high-grade gemming pill, and the starting price is 25 gold. The man took out a jade-green spiritual herb from a red box and showed it to the crowd. 50 gold, someone called out from the second floor. Everyone's gaze followed the source of the voice to a booth on the east side of the second floor. To double the price right off the bat, it was clear that he was determined to get it. Yun Ruoyan's gaze followed the crowd's. Only then did she realize that the bidder was none other than the heir of the Wang family, Wang Meng, who had agreed to a duel with her. 55 gold, another voice called out from another booth on the second floor. Gemming grass was an ingredient used to refine high-grade spiritual pills, so it was relatively valuable. 70 gold. The bidder was a middle-aged man by Wang Meng's side. Yun Ruoyan remembered that his name was Wang Gang, and he was one of Wang Meng's attendants. Gemming grass is valuable, but it's only worth between 40 and 50 gold, Lin Qingchen replied. 70 gold is already the highest price I can offer. Indeed, after Wang Gang called out 70 gold, no one else made a bid. 70 gold sold. The blue-robed man rang a small bronze bell. Congratulations to the guest in booth 12. Just then Yun Ruoyan saw Wang Meng lower a basket from the second floor, within which were 7 shiny ingots. A veiled woman by the side collected the ingots and, after confirming that they were in good condition, placed the red box containing the gemming grass into the basket. Wang Meng retracted the basket and took out the red box. Ding. Next, the second round of the auction. The blue-robed man placed a rather large red box on the stage. When he opened it, he saw that it was a pitch-black stone that glowed with a metallic luster. Middle-grade forging material, starry meteorite. Starting price: 150 gold. 160 gold. Someone called out a bid as soon as the blue-robed man finished speaking. 165 gold taels. Someone immediately followed up. 180 gold. 200 gold. The bidders were all forge masters from all over the Qinyuan continent. Forge masters were common on the Qinyuan continent, so there were many bidders. The price continued to climb, and in the end, it reached 375 gold taels. Do you still have 375 taels of gold? The blue-robed man asked in a loud voice. The heavenly meteorite is a middle-grade refining material. It's very rare. If not, the bell will ring. Just as the man raised his hand to ring the bell, another bid rang out from the second floor above Yun Ruoyan. 400 gold taels. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but frown when she heard the voice. No wonder she had felt as if someone had been looking at her. It was Pei Zio. Since Pei Zio was here, his father Pei Yingxiong would definitely be here as well. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. This pair of father and son still owed her a debt, so she might as well collect it today. Sold for 400 gold taels. Congratulations to the guest in room 16 on the second floor. The blue-robed man rang the bell, completing the transaction. Next up was Yun Ruoyan's low-grade darkened heavens pill. When Yun Ruoyan saw the blue-robed man place the red wooden box on the table and open the lid to reveal the pill within, she couldn't help but sit up straight. This was her first time auctioning off a pill that she had personally refined, so she was a little nervous. The century-old Lin family is auctioning a low-grade, high-quality darkened heavens pill, the man announced loudly. It's a pill from the Lin family, someone exclaimed in surprise. It's been a long time since I've seen a pill from the Lin family on auction. That's right, the last time I saw a pill from the Lin family on auction was 3 or 4 years ago. I heard that Grandpa Lin sealed his furnace. I heard that the Lin family made enough money from auctioning off pills to buy an entire city. Why would they still be auctioning off a pill? Perhaps Master Lin has a successor now, someone else guessed. In any case, you won't lose out on a pill from the Lin family, even if the price rises in the future, a seller beside Yun Ruoyan commented. One low-grade darkened heavens pill starting at 10 taels of gold, the blue-robed man announced. 20 taels of gold. The bidder was Pei Zio, who was 2 floors above Yun Ruoyan. A darkened heavens pill was a pill that could help those without any talent for cultivation quickly accumulate spiritual energy in the surroundings, allowing them to become a third-rank blade master. After taking this pill, One's cultivation would often remain at 5th rank forever. As a result, only a few large families would purchase such a pill in order to ensure that their untalented descendants wouldn't become mediocre. Yun Ruoyan didn't know what Pei Zhou was up to. Pei Zhou had spotted Yun Ruoyan as soon as he entered the auction hall. At the time, Yun Ruoyan had been talking to someone beside her, so she hadn't noticed him. His goal was to attract Yun Ruoyan's attention. 40 taels of gold, Wang Gang called out loudly. Do you want to bid? The person who had offered to buy it for his collection asked the person next to him. Didn't you say you were going to bid? Why are you asking me now? The person next to that person replied, the best quality Darkened Heavens pill is only worth 30 taels of gold. Now that it has soared to 40 taels of gold, it's all because of the Lin family's reputation. If you don't bid now, you won't have a share. The man beside him was tempted, but just as he was hesitating about whether or not to bid, the price rose again. 50 taels of gold, Pei Zhou called out once more. Darkened Heavens pills were actually quite popular in the market and quite a few of the buyers present were tempted. However, Pei Zhou and Wang Meng had raised the price so high that no one else had a chance to bid. This price has already been capped, Lin Qingchen suddenly spoke up. 60 gold taels. As soon as Lin Qingchen finished speaking, Wang Gang made another bid. Lin Qingchen frowned. Even if it's the Lin family, it's not worth that much. Yun Ruoyan frowned as well. She could roughly guess that Pei Zhou was trying to curry favor with her, and at the same time she could vaguely guess why Wang Meng wanted to buy her medicine. Young master, this Darkened Heavens pill isn't worth the price we're offering. Wang Gang turned to Wang Meng, who was sitting behind him. This pill was produced by the Lin family, Wang Meng replied. Last time we pressured old Lin so much but he refused to sell it to us. There's no reason for him to do so now. Young master, are you saying that this pill wasn't refined by old Lin? Wang Gang didn't understand. Then why are we spending so much money on it? It's not like we're lacking low-grade spiritual pills like that. Old Lin didn't refine it, but it's using the Lin family's name. There's only one possibility. What could it be? Wang Gang asked curiously. Wang Meng sighed as he looked at Wang Gang with a helpless expression, as if he was worried about his intelligence. Perhaps it was refined by old Lin's disciple, the girl who hasn't even reached adulthood yet. Oh, so young master wants to buy her to study the little girl's cultivation. Knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, you will always be victorious, right? Wang Gang said with a look of realization. Wang Meng didn't want to talk to him anymore. Actually, Wang Meng didn't want to admit that he was wasting his energy on a girl who was still wet behind the ears. But Yun Ruoyan had left a very special impression on him. He couldn't help but think of her calm demeanor as well as the way she had burned Wang Gang's face black. As time passed, Wang Meng couldn't help but take Yun Ruoyan more seriously. After Wang Gang called out 60 taels of gold, Pei Zhou didn't respond for a long time. 60 taels of gold is already too much, Pei Xiong said. It's not worth it. 65 taels of gold, Pei Zhou called out once more, seemingly unconvinced. 70 taels of gold. Wang Meng walked up to the railing and called out his bid. Master Pei, I must have this pill, so please move aside. When Pei Xiong saw Wang Meng, he immediately stood up and laughed. So it's little brother Wang Meng. Forgive this old man for not recognizing you. This is truly a case of flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. Then the two of them began to laugh. Father, do you know him? Pei Zhou asked. Pei Xiong nodded. He's Wang Kuang's brother, a rare pill-making genius of the Wang family. Although he's not even 20 yet, he's already a 5th-rank pill master and his future is limitless. It took me a lot of effort to befriend him and I can't afford to offend him. Did you hear that? Pei Xiong emphasized when he saw that Pei Zhou was in a daze. Father, I heard you. Pei Zhou was a little shocked. Wang Meng's brother Wang Kuang had died at Yun Ruoyan's hands. But not only had he concealed the truth of Wang Kuang's death, he had even killed Wang Kuang's companions Jin Fei and his lackeys. If Wang Meng were to start investigating, it would be difficult for him to escape. Pei Zhou had kept this matter a secret from Pei Xiong. He had only told him that Yun Ruoyan had discovered the secret of the imperial territory, but not that he had killed Wang Kuang. In fact, Yun Ruoyan, the Lin sisters and the Yun sisters had never mentioned this matter to anyone else. Pei Zhou couldn't help but poke his head out to look at Yun Ruoyan, thinking that he had to find an opportunity to discuss this matter with her. Pei Yingxiong indicated that he had given up on bidding, and Pei Zio followed him back to his seat. 70 taels going once, 70 taels going twice, 70 taels going twice, 70 taels going twice, the blue-robed man announced. Congratulations, second floor, room 12. The man began ringing the bell. 800 taels of gold. Just then a clear female voice rang out from one of the curtained rooms on the third floor. The blue-robed man hesitated for a moment, then immediately retracted his hand from the bell. The guest in room 9 on the third floor bids 100 taels of gold. 150 taels, Wang Meng murmured, and Wang Gang called out the number. 200 taels of gold. 300 taels of gold. 500 taels of gold. Wang Meng frowned as he looked up at the third floor. There weren't many people in the Four Kingdoms who had the right to enter the third floor, and he was trying to guess who it was. Young master, we can't go any higher or we'll be losing out. Wang Gang was a little anxious. 800 taels of gold. Wang Meng raised the price once more. 1,000 taels of gold, the woman called out without hesitation. Yun Ruoyan, Yun Moxiao, and even Lin Qingchen couldn't believe their ears. A low-grade darkened heavens pill had soared from 10 taels of gold to 1,000 taels of gold? Which idiot had made such a bid? Chapter 142. At the moment, the simple-minded man was sitting in the third floor's room, sipping on a cup of wine. When Li Luo saw that her master's cup was empty, she refilled Li Mo's cup. As Li Mo sipped his wine, he glanced at Yun Ruoyan, who was sitting on the first floor. Yun Ruoyan was also looking in his direction, but while Li Mo could see Yun Ruoyan clearly, Yun Ruoyan could only see a blurry shadow. Wang Meng was also staring intently at Li Mo's room. He had gone through every single person in the Four Kingdoms who was able to enter the third floor's rooms, but he still couldn't guess who would be willing to spend 1,000 taels of gold on a low-grade darkened heavens pill. Was he intentionally trying to outbid him, or was there some other reason? Wang Meng frowned, but he couldn't think of a reason. Young master, you can't raise the price any further. Wang Gang saw that Wang Meng still seemed a little unwilling to give up, and was afraid that he would raise the price again. Wang Meng ignored him, but he retracted his gaze and returned to his seat, as though he had decided to give up. Originally, he'd only wanted to buy this pill because of his special impression of Yun Ruoyan. In Wang Meng's heart, he didn't really see Yun Ruoyan as a rival, much less a threat to him. It wasn't worth it to do so casually, but it wouldn't be worth it if he had to cut his own flesh. As a member of the Shang family, he wouldn't make a loss. 8,000 taels going once, 1,000 taels going twice. Seeing that no one else was raising the price, the blue-robed man began counting down. 8,000 taels going twice. Ding. The man rang the bell. Congratulations to the guest in the third floor's room for winning a low-grade darkened heavens pill from the Lin family's apothecary. The blue-robed man's voice was filled with excitement. This was the first time he had sold an auction item for 1,000 gold taels from 10 gold taels. Although 1,000 taels of gold wasn't a large sum of money in the Four Kingdoms auction houses, it was rare to see an item that had gone from 10 to 1,000 taels of gold. As a result, this auction would mark the blue-robed man's career as a professional. Sister Ruoyan. When Lin Qingchen saw Yun Ruoyan staring blankly at room number 9 on the third floor, she patted her lightly. Yun Ruoyan turned to look at Lin Qingchen, but Lin Qingchen gestured for her to look at Yun Moxiao, who was also staring intently at room number 9 on the third floor. At this time, a woman in light green clothes and a veil of the same color walked out from behind the curtain of the private room. Yun Moxiao, on the other hand, stared at the woman without blinking, his gaze rather unusual. Yun Ruoyan glanced at the woman, frowned, and turned to her brother. Brother, do you know her? Yun Moxiao snapped out of his daze and turned around to see his two sisters staring at him with sparkling eyes. He couldn't help but blush as he said, "That woman was the masked woman I met on the street the other day." Although the woman had covered her face that day, Yun Moxiao could still recognize her from her figure and attire. She was the one who had saved the little girl from the horse's hooves. "She's the owner of that sachet?" Yun Ruoyan asked in surprise. Yun Moxiao nodded in confirmation. Lin Qingchen couldn't help but look at the woman as well. She was masked and it was hard to tell what she looked like, but she seemed to be older than the two of them. Li Luo walked up to the railing, placed a banknote into the basket and then lowered it. The masked woman on the stage retrieved the banknote and placed the darkened heavens pill into the basket. Your Highness. Li Luo placed the wooden box on the table in front of Li Mo. Li Mo opened the lid, and a faint medicinal aroma wafted out. Li Mo picked up the pill and looked at it, revealing a satisfied smile. Your Highness. Li Luo's expression was a little anxious. They hadn't actually come to the auction today. It was only because they had inadvertently seen Yun Ruoyan's figure on their way in that Li Mo had turned around and come here. It was also time for their mission, and if they didn't go now they might be late. Li Mo put the pill back into the basket, picked up the wooden box and stored it in his storage ring before standing up. Just as the two of them were about to walk out, a manager came to ask if the seller of the Darkened Heavens pill wished to see Li Mo. Li Mo waved his hand, indicating that he wouldn't see him. When Yun Ruoyan heard the manager say that the seller wouldn't be able to see her, she felt an inexplicable sense of anger. As soon as Yun Ruoyan saw Li Luo, she had guessed that the person who had bought her pill was Li Mo. But what was the meaning of this? He had bought her pill at such a foolish price, but he wouldn't see her. Yun Ruoyan watched as Li Mo, dressed in a black robe, walked down the stairs and out of the main hall. She quickly followed him, followed by Lin Qingchen and Yun Moxiao. Yun Ruoyan's footsteps brushed past Pei Zio, who had come downstairs to look for her. Sister Ruoyan, Pei Zio called out from behind her. Yun Ruoyan heard him, but she didn't have time to respond. When Yun Ruoyan ignored him, Pei Zio followed her out of the main hall. Yun Ruoyan followed Li Mo out of the house and out of the courtyard. It was even more bustling outside than when they had arrived, and Yun Ruoyan's vision was obstructed by the flurry of figures. Soon she lost track of Li Mo. I lost him, Yun Ruoyan said to Lin Qingchen and Yun Moxiao, who were following behind her. Yun Moxiao was tall and stood out from the crowd. He raised his head and looked around. Suddenly he saw the back of a green-robed figure turn into a corridor. I'll go take a look, he said. Wait for me here. Then he lifted his feet and walked towards the corridor. Sister Ruoyan. Just then Pei Zio's voice came from behind Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan and Lin Qingchen turned around to see him walking toward them, and they couldn't help but frown. In the imperial territory, Pei Zio had given the Lin sisters an extremely bad impression, and Lin Qingchen was quite disgusted by him. Sister Run, I have something to say to you, Pei Zio said as he walked up to Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan smiled at him. Young Master Pei, what could I possibly have to say to you? Pei Zio looked at Yun Ruoyan with a teasing smile, but with a face as delicate as the petals of a flower, even a teasing smile would look good on her. As a result, Pei Zio subconsciously ignored the teasing in her smile. There's too many people here, not a good place to talk. Pei Zio pointed at a fake hill not too far away. It's quieter there, so let's talk there. Lin Qingchen tugged at Yun Ruoyan, indicating that she shouldn't go, but Yun Ruoyan had her own plans. She patted Lin Qingchen's hand, gesturing for her to wait where she was before following Pei Zio. Young Master Pei, you can speak now, Yun Ruoyan said coolly, her arms crossed. Did you see the man who wanted to buy the Lin family's spiritual herb? Pei Zio looked at Yun Ruoyan. Yes, I did. That man's called Wang Meng, Wang Kuang's brother. Pei Zio's expression was very serious. This way. Yun Ruoyan's tone was still indifferent, not at all surprised by Pei Zio's words. He's Wang Kuang's brother. Pei Zio was surprised by Yun Ruoyan's calmness. He stepped forward and whispered, Wang Kuang, have you forgotten? He's the one you killed in the imperial territory? Aren't you afraid that his brother will seek revenge? Who killed whom in the imperial territory? Yun Ruoyan looked confused. Young Master Pei, why don't I understand what you're saying? Pei Zio stared blankly at Yun Ruoyan's mysterious smile. It took him a long while to react. It had been 2 or 3 months since they had left the imperial territory, but there hadn't been a single rumor of Wang Kuang's death in the capital. In fact, quite a number of scions from the 4 kingdoms had lost their lives in the imperial territory, and many of them had ended up in the stomachs of magical beasts. As long as no one reported Wang Kuang's death, no one would suspect that Yun Ruoyan had killed him. But now that time had passed, even if someone reported Yun Ruoyan wouldn't admit to it. Pei Zio looked at Yun Ruoyan's calm demeanor and couldn't help but sweat. How could he have panicked so much when he saw Wang Kuang? In this aspect he had lost to Yun Ruoyan by quite a bit. I misspoke, Sister Run, please don't take offense, Pei Zhou said after regaining his composure. Young Master Pei, is there something else you want to talk to me about? Yun Ruian sighed. Young Master Pei, is there something else you want to talk to me about? If that's the case, then name a price. I'm willing to pay for your father's forging. Pei Zhou had told Yun Ruian more than once that the tiger canine arrows had been forged, but his condition was that she personally go to the Pei manor to retrieve them. Yun Ruian knew that the Pei family was a den of wolves and she would be a fool to go there. As a result, the matter had been delayed. Now that Zhou Yifeng had arrived, and although he hadn't asked Yun Ruian about it, Yun Ruian was bound to keep her promises. It's not about the payment, Pei Zhou replied. My father and I would like to invite you to a banquet at the manor, and then personally present the tiger canine arrows to you. Oh, so you want to invite me to a drink? Yun Ruian pretended to understand. There's no need to go to your house. Let's do it here today. The Yuelu villa was large and lively, and there were bound to be good restaurants around. But my father's already invited someone else for a drink, Pei Zhou replied awkwardly. Then it'll be just the two of us. Yun Ruian's smile was so happy that her cold demeanor melted away. This is my first time here, young Master Pei. Don't tell me you don't want to invite me to a drink? Of course not. Pei Zhou was flattered. The dishes here are all top-notch, especially the drunken Immortal. Especially the intoxicated Immortal. It's mellow and sweet, very suitable for women's tastes. Sister Ruian will definitely like it. Oh really? Yun Ruian continued. I just happen to be thirsty right now. Pei Zhou hurriedly led the way. At the same time, Pei Zhou's heart began to race. The drunken Immortal was sweet and refreshing, but it had a strong after-effect. It was said that 3 cups of it would cause one to collapse. This was Yun Ruian's first time here, so she definitely didn't know about it. If he could get Yun Ruian drunk here and have her drink, he wouldn't have to go through all the trouble of luring her to the Pei manor. Chapter 143. Yun Ruian told Lin Qingchen that she wanted to follow Pei Zhou to the Xianxia restaurant, and Lin Qingchen wanted to tag along as well, but Yun Ruian told her to wait for her brother. Lin Qingchen held on to Yun Ruian's hand, but Yun Ruian smiled at her. It's not like you don't know young Master Pei. I have something to discuss with him, so when my brother returns, you don't have to wait for me. Young Master Pei will take me home. Miss Lin, don't worry. I'll take Ruian home, Pei Zhou hurriedly added. Lin Qingchen saw Yun Ruian's eyes flicker, and knew that she had a plan. Although she was still a little worried, she still let go of her hand. Yun Ruian followed Pei Zhou south. After walking for about 5 minutes, they entered another courtyard. There was a plaque on the door that read, Immortal Abode. Inside the courtyard was a large lake, and there were small pavilions on and around the lake. The eaves of the pavilions, the pillars of the bridge, and the pavement were all inlaid with moonstones, illuminating the entire courtyard. Yun Ruian looked around. Every pavilion was occupied by people drinking and chatting merrily. On the opposite side of the lake was a small pavilion with a plaque that read, Immortal Abode. That's the Yuelu Villa's famous Immortal Abode, where you can find delicacies from all 4 kingdoms. Pei Zhou introduced as he led Yun Ruian onto the bridge leading to the Immortal Abode. If we're talking about alcohol, it's the drunken Immortal. Sister Ruan, you'll have to try a few cups later. The two of them entered the Immortal Abode, and Pei Zhou asked for a private room on the 2nd floor. The waiter led the two of them into the room and took their orders. Pei Zhou showed Yun Ruian the menu. Yun Ruian glanced at the menu, which contained a series of abstract dishes such as Blazing Lian Yun's Song of the Jade Sea and Nirvana of the Phoenix. She didn't ask any questions, choosing only the most expensive dishes and filling up 7 large bowls and 8 large plates. A conservative estimate would be around 10 taels of gold. Even though Pei Zhou was a wealthy man, he couldn't help but gulp when he saw Yun Ruian's order. Alright, we'll order this. Pei Zhou handed the menu to the waiter. And a flask of drunken Immortal and a flask of February's Red. The room was by the window and Yun Ruian looked out into the distance. Now that she was a 7th-rank blade master, her eyesight had greatly improved, and she could see the mountains in the distance. One of them was even taller than the others. That's the highest peak, the main peak of the Kongming Mountains, Pei Zhou replied. Kongming Academy is located there. Yun Ruian nodded. Young Master Pei, today's banquet is on me. Please bring me my tiger canine arrowheads as soon as possible. How can I do that? I said it was my treat. Pei Zhou said awkwardly, I also want to give the arrowhead to my sister as soon as possible to fulfill our agreement, but the arrowhead is in my father's hands. I can't get it. Oh, I see. Yun Ruoyan turned her head to look out the window once more, concealing the mocking smile on her face. Since talking nicely wouldn't work, she could only resort to underhanded methods. Very quickly the dishes were served. Pei Zhou placed a flask of Immortal intoxication in front of Yun Ruoyan, while he took the flask of February red wine. Sister Ruoyan, try this Immortal intoxication. Pei Zhou first filled Yun Ruoyan's cup with wine. Young Master Pei, why aren't you drinking Immortal intoxication? Yun Ruoyan asked when she saw that Pei Zhou had poured a different flask of wine for her. That Immortal intoxication is sweet and girls like it. I like spicy drinks like this, Pei Zhou explained. Yun Ruoyan's Immortal intoxication was clear and bright, and it tasted sweet and fragrant. Just as she was about to take a sip, she suddenly said, It's not good to drink on an empty stomach. Why don't you eat something first? As she spoke, she put down the wine glass. Pei Zhou hurriedly began recommending dishes to her. A fiery red vegetable dish that was sliced into thin slices and served on a white porcelain plate. As for rising jade sea, it was a soup made from lotus leaves and lotus seeds. Yun Ruoyan took a few bites. Although the taste wasn't bad, it wasn't as exaggerated as Pei Zhou had made it out to be. Isn't it to your liking? Why don't you try the Immortal intoxication? Pei Zhou asked. Yun Ruoyan wasn't an idiot, and she had long since guessed that there was something fishy about the wine. My stomach's really empty and these dishes aren't very appetizing. Could I trouble you to order some snacks for me, young Master Pei? When Pei Zhou heard Yun Ruoyan's stomach grumble, he didn't suspect anything and agreed readily. When Yun Ruoyan saw him leave, she took out a red wooden box, opened it and took out the soul-stealing pill. Yun Ruoyan opened the flask of wine in front of Pei Zhou and placed the soul-stealing pill inside. She shook the flask lightly, and the pill dissolved quickly upon contact with the wine. Hearing footsteps, Yun Ruoyan hurriedly put down the flask of wine and sat down. Not long after Pei Zhou entered the room, a waiter came in with a few desserts. Yun Ruoyan was truly hungry and she didn't hesitate to eat them. Come, young Master Pei, let me offer you a toast. Yun Ruoyan finished one of the desserts and raised the cup of Immortal intoxication in front of her. Yun Ruoyan had seen the waiter bring the wine into the room, so she was sure that Pei Zhou hadn't had the opportunity to poison the wine. In that case, there was only one possibility for him to keep making her drink: to get her drunk. She had already spiked Pei Zhou's wine with a soul-stealing pill. In Qiuqiu's words, after taking a soul-stealing pill, he wouldn't go west if you told him to, and he wouldn't know how to catch a chicken if you told him to kill a dog. As long as Pei Zhou drank the spiked wine, he wouldn't have the opportunity to get her drunk. When Pei Zhou saw Yun Ruoyan voluntarily propose a toast to him, he quickly filled his own cup and drained it in one gulp. Yun Ruoyan watched as Pei Zhou drained his cup of wine, only dipping his own slightly into the Immortal intoxication. She found that the wine was fragrant and sweet. The taste of the wine was very light, not like wine but more like sweet fruit juice. Sister Ruoyan, I'll toast you as well. I know you're still holding a grudge against me for what happened in the Imperial territory, and I'll make it up to you in the future. Pei Zhou poured himself another cup of Immortal intoxication before turning to Yun Ruoyan. Sister Ruoyan, why aren't you drinking? Yun Ruoyan also drank the Immortal intoxication in her cup. Come, let's have another. After a cup of Immortal intoxication, Yun Ruoyan didn't feel anything at all. She let down her guard a little, thinking that it was just a tasty drink, and drank another cup with Pei Zhou. By this time, Pei Zhou had drunk 3 or 4 cups of wine, and his head was starting to spin. Yun Ruoyan told him to drink and he stopped when she told him to. Yun Ruoyan knew that the soul-stealing pill was beginning to take effect. What's your name? Yun Ruoyan asked. Pei Zhou. Pei Zhou replied woodenly. What's your father's name? Pei Xiang. Who am I? Yun Ruoyan asked. Pei Zhou turned his head stiffly toward Yun Ruoyan. Mistress. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel a little smug. If he fought with her, he'd be dead in a matter of minutes. Very good. Yun Ruoyan composed herself. Now I have a mission for you to complete. Yes, mistress. Yun Ruoyan nodded in satisfaction. I want you to return to the Pei Manor and steal the tiger canine arrowheads to deliver to the Lins. Yes, mistress. Yun Ruoyan didn't think that was enough. Also steal all of your high-grade spiritual pills. Yes, mistress. Yun Ruoyan felt quite relieved, but then she realized that she couldn't. If she emptied the Pei family, Pei Yingxiong would surely go crazy. Previously, in order to save Pei Zio, Pei Yingxiong had even dared to barge into the Yun Manor. If she really forced him into a corner, who knew what he'd do? Yun Ruoyan wasn't afraid of Pei Yingxiong's wrath, but she felt that it wasn't worth it. As a result, she corrected herself. The previous condition doesn't count. Don't steal all of your family's spiritual pills, just 2. Yun Ruoyan waved 2 fingers in front of Pei Zio's eyes. She and Pei Zio had agreed on refining the tiger canine arrowheads and 2 high-grade spiritual pills. Even if she were to steal 2 of his high-grade spiritual pills, she would still have a valid reason to do so. Alright, then I'll be taking my leave. Yun Ruoyan stood up and poured herself another cup of immortal intoxication. After I leave, you can leave after an hour. You only have 3 days, so hurry up. Yes, mistress, Pei Zio replied blankly. Yun Ruoyan stood up and prepared to leave. When she opened the door to her room, a gust of cold wind blew into her face. She felt as if her head had been filled with sand and she fell straight to the ground. Damn it! That immortal intoxication has a strong aftereffect. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but curse. It was all her fault for being so greedy. Even though she'd suspected that there was something wrong with the wine, she still couldn't help but drink 3 cups. Damn it. She forced herself not to pass out as she held onto the railing and walked down the stairs. I mustn't get drunk here. If Pei Yingxiong comes looking for me, wouldn't I be sending myself into a tiger's den? However, the effects of the alcohol were getting stronger and stronger. When she saw someone walking toward her, she wanted to give way to him, but she still ended up bumping into him. I'm sorry, Yun Ruoyan apologized vaguely as she continued walking toward the staircase. Yun Ruoyan finally saw the staircase and she stepped on it. In her eyes, the staircase was like a wave on the surface of a lake, undulating and undulating. She stepped on nothing and sure enough, she missed. Yun Ruoyan closed her eyes, thinking that she'd just roll down the stairs and get up again. In any case, she had to leave this place as soon as possible. Just then, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from behind her, grabbed her waist and pulled her into his embrace. Yun Ruoyan's heart skipped a beat. She turned around to look at the person's face, but it was a blur. She subconsciously reached out to touch the person's face, but her wrist was grabbed. Who are you? Yun Ruoyan stuttered. Chapter 144. Look at who I am. Li Mo bent down in front of Yun Ruoyan, their noses almost touching. Yun Ruoyan saw a distorted face suddenly grow larger in front of her eyes. The nose, eyes and mouth were all superimposed on top of each other, looking both strange and hilarious. Yun Ruoyan reached out with her other hand and tapped the tip of Li Mo's nose. You're ugly, hee. Li Mo grabbed Yun Ruoyan's other wrist and whispered in her ear, You're quite drunk. Do you want some soup? Yun Ruoyan shook her head. Let go of me, I have to get out of here quickly. If I'm caught, I'll be in trouble. Li Mo raised an eyebrow and pulled Yun Ruoyan back into the corridor. Yun Ruoyan continued to struggle in a daze. Behave yourself. Don't blame me if you fall, Li Mo warned. With one hand holding Yun Ruoyan, he made a hand seal with the other. A green sword aura rose from beneath his feet, and the 2 of them soared into the air. Ah! Although Yun Ruoyan was quite drunk, she still knew fear. She was so frightened that she immediately hugged Li Mo's waist tightly. The green sword was so fast that Yun Ruoyan could only feel the cold wind whistling by her ears. It was already early autumn and there was a chill in the mornings and evenings. Yun Ruoyan felt weak and cold, so she burrowed into Li Mo's robes and clung to him for warmth. Li Mo lowered his head to look at the kitten-like girl in his arms, and his lips couldn't help but curl into a smile. They were high up in the air and their speed was fast. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but shiver when the cold wind blew past her and she sobered up a little. Turning her head, Li Mo's face gradually became clearer. Li Mo, where are you taking me? Oh, you finally recognized me. Li Mo's inky hair danced in the wind as did his robes. Yes. Yun Ruoyan nodded. Where are you taking me? To sober you up. Li Mo changed his hand seal and the green sword's speed increased. At this moment, if the people on the ground raised their heads, they would see a green meteor. Yun Ruoyan's grip on Li Mo's waist tightened. She hadn't had much experience flying on a sword and she could only recall 2 or 3 times. The first 2 times had been with Li Mo on Yun Ma Xiao's sword, and the most recent time had been on Yun Ma Xiao's sword. However, this was the first time he had ever flown so high and so fast on a sword. Yun Ruoyan felt as if her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She wanted to scream, but she didn't want to embarrass herself, so she could only hold it in. We're here. Finally, following Li Mo's voice, the azure light sword slowed down. Yun Ruoyan opened her eyes, turned her head, and saw a towering mountain in front of her. In the darkness of the night, Yun Ruoyan couldn't clearly make out the shape of the mountain. All she could see was a dark shadow that pierced through the clouds like a sharp sword. Next to the mountain peak was an undulating mountain range. There's a mountain range in the north known as the Kongming Mountains, Yun Ruoyan began. There's a peak in the sky isolated from the rest of the world, known as the Kongming Peak. This is the Kongming Peak and Kongming Academy is located at its peak. When she heard Li Mo's words, she couldn't help but look up. However, halfway up the mountain, there was a thick layer of clouds that obstructed her view. Yun Ruoyan had been to the Kongming Peak before entering the imperial territory, but that was only one of the larger mountains in the Kongming Mountains, and it was still quite a distance away from the Kongming Peak. Now Li Mo had brought her to the Kongming Peak. Kongming Academy was the holy land that all cultivators on the Qinyuan continent yearned for, and in less than 10 days Yun Ruoyan would be one of its students. She would finally be able to leave the Yun family, escape her nightmare and enter a new world. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel excited. She pointed to the sky and yelled, "I want to soar into the heavens." Her voice was clear and melodious, reverberating through the mountains. Yun Ruoyan's voice sounded a little tipsy, but she didn't expect the person behind her to respond coolly. "That's easy. Hold on tight." Before Yun Ruoyan could react, the green light sword brought them up into the sky, piercing through the clouds. Back in the Yuelu villa, Yun Ma Xiao followed Li Luo to a secluded location. The entrance was set up in an inconspicuous place, guarded by 2 masked men on either side of the door. Those who didn't know better would mistake this place for an underground casino, and Yun Ma Xiao had thought so at first. Yun Ma Xiao knew that following a girl like this wasn't a good idea. If he were discovered, she might mistake him for a gangster. However, he was also curious and his curiosity was tinged with concern. As a result, Yun Ma Xiao hid behind a pillar and watched as Li Luo walked to the entrance. Li Luo showed the burly man something and he handed her a mask. Li Luo put it on and entered the entrance. A few breaths later, Yun Ma Xiao walked out from behind the pillar, his hands clasped behind his back, and walked casually to the entrance. "Stop." At the entrance, the burly man with the ghost mask stopped him and asked, "Who introduced you?" Yun Ma Xiao didn't know what this place was, nor did he think that he would need someone to introduce him to this place. He was uncertain, but his face was calm. He said, "Chu Jing, the legitimate son of General Chu in the south of the city, introduced me." Chu Jing was Yun Ma Xiao's comrade in the army, and Yun Ma Xiao had heard most of the Yuelu villa's affairs from him. As a result, Yun Ma Xiao had mentioned his name to try his luck. Unexpectedly, he was right. "And who are you? Do you have any identification?" the burly man asked. Yun Ma Xiao took out a jade tablet from his pocket and handed it to the burly man. This tablet was his identification in the army, and it could be used to mobilize soldiers of lower rank than him in battle. "That's enough." The burly man returned the tablet to Yun Ma Xiao. Another man wearing a white mask with a long tongue gave Yun Ma Xiao a black ghost mask, indicating for him to put it on. Yun Ma Xiao put on the mask as requested, and the burly man stepped aside to let Yun Ma Xiao in. The entrance wasn't long, and at the end of the corridor was a cacophony of voices. Yun Ma Xiao dove straight into the crowd. The people around him were also wearing masks, some with black ghosts, some with green ghosts, and some with red ghosts. Yun Ma Xiao started looking for the person wearing the white ghost mask. He'd seen Li Luo wearing a white ghost mask. "Come on, kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Bite his neck. Bite him to death." "Idiot, how did he get bitten to death?" That useless beast got bitten to death by someone. I've struck gold again. At that moment, the voices of the people ahead caught Yun Moxiao's attention. Only then did Yun Moxiao notice that there was an area surrounded by a metal fence, and there were quite a few people watching. Yun Moxiao walked over to the cage. Using his height advantage, he could see a tall, muscular man standing in the middle of the cage. The man's face and body were covered in wounds, and there was even a scratch on his chest. His flesh was curled up and fresh blood flowed from it. His feet were already soaked in blood. Next to the man lay a lion-shaped magical beast that was even larger than the man. The magical beast wasn't dead yet, and it was still twitching. The tough fur around its neck had been torn apart and blood was gushing out of the wound. The man spat out the fur in his mouth, then squatted down and grabbed a handful of ash from the ground, pressing it onto the wound on his chest. Yun Moxiao knew that under extreme conditions, this was a method to stop the bleeding, but the man's injuries were too severe. If he didn't stop the bleeding in time, he wouldn't be able to last long. Well done. Beastmen are even wilder than beasts. Someone in the crowd cheered excitedly. I bet on beastmen to win. That's not necessarily true. There are weak beastmen out there, but today's newcomer is especially ferocious. Yun Moxiao listened to the conversations of the people around him and looked at the surrounding environment. He knew that this was the arena Chu Jing mentioned. There was a tall platform at the top of the dueling ring where the manager of the dueling ring was seated. In front of him stood a woman wearing a white ghost mask. That woman was none other than Li Luo. Li Luo looked at the man in the middle of the dueling ring, her heart filled with anxiety. With Li Mo's help, she had finally found her senior brother, Duan Tianyun. When she found out that he had been sold to the Yuelu Villa's dueling ring, she had begged Li Mo to save him. Tonight, Li Luo had followed Li Mo to ransom Duan Tianyun. However, when Li Mo had entered the dueling ring, he had abruptly left, leaving only his slaughtering king's jade token for Li Luo to rescue Duan Tianyun on her own. However, after seeing the slaughtering king's identity medallion, the masked infernal judge refused to let Duan Tianyun out. He's already fought 2 matches in a row. Why aren't you releasing him? Li Luo asked the manager angrily. There are 3 matches scheduled for today, the manager replied. The steward replied, of course we have to give face to the slaughtering king, but the Yuelu Villa also has its own rules. No less than 3 matches a day. He's already so injured and you still want him to fight? Li Luo slammed the table. The slaughtering king will be here soon. If the person he wants dies, how are you going to explain yourself? Upon hearing the slaughtering king's name, the manager's expression changed slightly. He softened his tone and said, I don't have a choice. These are the rules of the dueling arena. If I break them, I'll be the next one standing in the dueling arena. Does that mean you'll let him go after the last match? Li Luo asked, having no other choice. The manager naturally didn't dare say that the dueling ring's rules were that no beastmen would be spared until they died. Of course. The manager nodded with a smile. Then the steward stood up, picked up a small red flag in his hand and waved it downwards. Immediately someone shouted loudly. Let the 3rd match begin. At the end of the call, the 2 iron gates on the other side of the fence opened, and 2 lion-like beasts as large as the one on the ground walked out. The crowd was in an uproar when they saw this. One of the beastmen had already injured the beastman quite severely, and now 2 of them were being released at the same time? Was this a show of tearing a man apart? How dare you trick me? Li Luo turned to the steward and glared at him angrily. Chapter 145. Li Luo angrily shouted at the steward, How dare you resort to trickery? Aren't you afraid of the slaughtering king's wrath? Miss, don't say such things. The steward met Li Luo's angry gaze, but he put on an innocent face. I didn't cheat. This is the Yuelu Villa's rule. Even if the slaughtering king wants to punish me, you can't put the blame on me. The Yuelu Villa was a unique existence on the Qinyuan continent. Although it didn't have the status of Kongming Academy that reigned supreme over the 4 kingdoms, it was still a force to be reckoned with. The Yuelu Villa's master, Dong Tiahe, was the current head of the alliance, and he had another identity, the grandfather of the 4th prince, Li Qianyue, and the father-in-law of the current emperor, Li Xiu. As a result, Even Li Mo had to be wary of the Yuelu villa. It was precisely because of this that the steward dared to act so fearlessly. The two lion-shaped beasts in the dueling ring had already surrounded Duan Tianyun, baring their fangs, their eyes glowing red. Duan Tianyun felt a little hopeless. Was he going to die here, buried in the stomachs of these beasts? Although his heart was filled with despair, he didn't show any fear on his face. Instead, his beastkin eyes, full of wildness, stared sharply at the two lion-shaped beasts. The two beasts had witnessed Duan Tianyun bite their companion to death, and had been intimidated by his wildness, which was even more ferocious than that of other beasts. For a moment they didn't dare to attack. Bite him. Come on, bite him. The crowd outside began to grow impatient when they saw that the man and the two beasts had been locked in a stalemate for so long. Could it be that these two beasts are scared out of their wits? What a bunch of useless things. Go, go. Bite him to death. As Duan Tianyun listened to the commotion outside, he looked around and saw countless people wearing all kinds of grimaces surrounding the fence. They were all dancing like demons, shouting at the top of their lungs for the magical beasts to bite him to death and eat him. Duan Tianyun couldn't suppress the fury in his heart. Arg! With a roar, he picked up the carcass of the beast he'd killed and threw it at the fence. Clang! The huge body of the magical beast smashed into the iron fence with a loud sound. The people standing around were startled by this sudden attack and retreated. There was a brief moment of silence before more angry curses erupted. This beastkin slave dares to provoke the humans? Kill him, don't let him live. Beastmen who provoke the human race cannot be allowed to live. We must kill him. Li Luo clenched her fists tightly. If this continued, even if Duan Tianyun managed to kill these two demonic beasts, the dueling arena wouldn't let him off. She no longer paid any attention to the steward and turned around to descend from the platform. Miss, you're leaving now, the steward called out to Li Luo's back. I won't be sending you off. He's using the Slaughtering King's name to intimidate the Yuelu villa. No matter how powerful the Slaughtering King is, he still has to obey the law and obey his majesty. Seeing Li Luo's back disappear, the steward snorted. Our villa lord is his majesty's father-in-law. According to seniority, even the Slaughtering King has to bow to him. Humph. After a round of mockery, the steward craned his neck to look at the situation in the dueling arena. The crowd was in an uproar, clamoring for the execution of the beastkin. The steward casually picked up a black chess piece and waved it in the air. Two more gates opened and two more lion-shaped demonic beasts walked out. The four lion-shaped demonic beasts surrounded Duan Tianyun. 4 lions against 1 Duan Tianyun was definitely going to be a one-sided slaughter. The crowd let out even more excited shouts, all of them looking forward to the arrival of that incomparably bloody scene. Yun Maxiao was still looking around for Li Luo when he spotted a familiar figure dressed in green. When he turned around, he saw the white ghost's mask on his face. Li Luo was squeezing her way through the crowd. When Yun Maxiao recognized her, he hurriedly squeezed through the crowd. The 4 beasts no longer feared Duan Tianyun. Amidst the crowd's cheers, they bared their fangs and pounced at Duan Tianyun. Duan Tianyun leaped up and landed on the neck of one of the demonic beasts, smashing his fist into its head. Roar. The beast howled in pain and began to shake Duan Tianyun off its back, but Duan Tianyun held on tightly to its fur. The other 3 magical beasts circled around the crazed magical beast in the middle, but for a moment they couldn't find a direction to attack. Seeing that it couldn't shake Duan Tianyun off its back, the beast began to roll on the ground. After rolling 3 or 4 times, it finally managed to shake Duan Tianyun off its back. The other 3 took advantage of this opportunity and pounced on Duan Tianyun. 2 of the beasts bit down on Duan Tianyun's legs, while the other bit down on his head. Duan Tianyun endured the pain in his legs. As the beast that was trying to bite his head opened its mouth, he quickly reached out and grabbed its jaws. The other beast took advantage of this opportunity and bit down on Duan Tianyun's shoulder. Duan Tianyun let out a cry of pain, but the intense pain only served to stimulate his strength. His arms grew in strength and he actually managed to tear the mouth of the demonic beast that was trying to bite off his head. Seeing this scene, everyone in the crowd was shocked. Beastkin truly are far more ferocious than ordinary beasts. They can actually tear beasts apart with their bare hands. Even though these lion-shaped magical beasts were only low-level magical beasts, They were still terrifying existences for people with low cultivation. The beastkin sent to the arena have their spiritual energy sealed, someone said. Otherwise they'd be even more ferocious. This beastkin was already injured from the start. He was still a little dizzy when he fought the first lion beast, but now he's getting more and more courageous. I wonder how the Slaughtering King managed to defeat such a powerful race, someone sighed. No wonder the Slaughtering King carried out such a massacre. With such a ferocious race on the rise, the human race will be in grave danger. Hearing this, the crowd sighed incessantly for a moment. Back in the arena, Duan Tianyun began to show signs of exhaustion after tearing apart a lion beast with his bare hands. When the other three beasts saw that their comrade had been killed, they began to tear at his body even more viciously. Duan Tianyun's left arm was completely torn off by the beast. The heart-wrenching pain nearly caused him to faint. As his vision blurred, Duan Tianyun seemed to see the leafless flowers blooming on the Yueli mountain. Those flowers bloomed brilliantly, covering the entire mountain slope like fire. He would never have the chance to return to his homeland. Duan Tianyun slowly closed his eyes. Senior brother. Li Luo felt as if her heart was being torn apart. She didn't care about anything else and leaped into the arena, stepping on the shoulders of the crowd. Yun Maxiao's heart skipped a beat when he saw the green figure jump into the arena. Li Luo quickly unsheathed a flexible sword from her waist and stabbed at the three beasts biting Duan Tianyun. One of the beasts was caught off guard and fell to the ground howling in pain. The other two beasts were on guard, dragging Duan Tianyun behind them as they glared at Li Luo. Hearing Li Luo's voice, Duan Tianyun struggled to open his eyes. He saw Li Luo facing off against two beasts. Junior sister, Duan Tianyun said hoarsely. Don't worry about me, you're no match for them. Run. Senior brother, I'm here to save you, Li Luo said. I have to get you out of here. Roar. The two lion-shaped beasts' eyes were bloodshot. They pounced at Li Luo, but Li Luo barely managed to dodge. The two beasts didn't give Li Luo any time to retaliate. They chased after her relentlessly. Li Luo could only rely on her footwork to dodge, unable to retaliate at all. Li Luo's spiritual energy was being drained and her movements were no longer as nimble as before. One of the magical beasts found an opportunity to leap in front of Li Luo, while the other blocked her back. The two magical beasts lunged at Li Luo at the same time. Duan Tianyun struggled to his feet, but he couldn't muster any strength. He'd lost too much blood from the stump of his arm, and it was already a miracle that he hadn't fainted. He could only watch as the two beasts attacked Li Luo. Li Luo blocked the beast in front of her with her sword, but the beast behind her opened its jaws and lunged at her from behind. Junior sister, behind you. Duan Tianyun shouted. Li Luo turned around, only to see that the beast's claws were already in front of her, and there was no room for her to move. Just as Li Luo thought she was going to die, a man appeared out of nowhere and stood in front of her. As Li Luo stared in shock, the man wrapped an arm around her waist and dodged the beast's attack. Then the man stretched out his leg and kicked the demonic beast's head, sending it flying. Can you stand? Yun Maxiao, dressed in dark red robes and wearing a black ghost mask, asked Li Luo. Li Luo nodded in a daze and Yun Maxiao retracted his hand from her waist. Yun Maxiao turned and stood in front of Li Luo. Facing the remaining lion-shaped beast, his body radiated the aura of a beast tamer. In the face of this aura, the lion-shaped beast slowly prostrated itself. Too weak. Yun Maxiao looked down at the kneeling lion-shaped beast. You're not fit to be my contracted beast. After saying that, Yun Maxiao raised his fist, and a layer of white light appeared on the surface of his fist. Boom. Yun Maxiao's fist smashed the lion-shaped beast's head into the ground. It was as dead as a doornail. Thank you for saving me, hero. Li Luo finally snapped out of her daze and hurried over to Duan Tianyun's side. Duan Tianyun's body was riddled with wounds. His right arm had been bitten off by the lion-shaped beast, and fresh blood stained the ground beneath him. Senior brother, are you all right? Li Luo took out a white porcelain bottle, poured out a pill and fed it to Duan Tianyun. I'm fine. I won't die yet, Duan Tianyun said, then fainted. He needs treatment as soon as possible, Yun Maxiao said. I'll take you out. What's going on? Where did those two come from? Are they the beast tamer's companions? The crowd was abuzz with chatter. Quick, catch them. At this time, the manager wearing the judge's mask shouted from the high platform. The warriors who were in charge of guarding the fence immediately opened the fence and surrounded the few of them. Without a word, Yun Maxiao lifted Duan Tianyun onto his back and wrapped an arm around Li Luo's waist. He formed a sword seal and a yellow sword aura rose from beneath his feet. The three of them soared into the air, heading for the exit amidst the shouts of the crowd. Chapter 146. With Li Luo and Duan Tianyun in tow, Yun Maxiao charged out of the Yuelu villa and into the sky above the Yuelu villa. There's a carriage waiting for us outside, Li Luo called out to Yun Maxiao. Please send us there. Yun Maxiao nodded and directed the yellow sword to fly out of the villa. That's the one. Li Luo pointed at an extravagant carriage parked at the outermost edge of the crowd. Yun Maxiao brought the two of them to the side of the carriage. Old Nine, come help us. Li Luo called out to one of the men on the carriage. The man called Old Ninth immediately jumped down from the carriage and rushed forward to take Duan Tianyun from Yun Maxiao's back, then placed him in the carriage. May I know your name, hero? I'll repay you for saving my life in the future. Li Luo cupped her fists toward Yun Maxiao. Yun Maxiao took off his mask and smiled. Miss, do you still remember me? Li Luo immediately recognized Yun Maxiao as the man who had saved her from the horse's hooves that day. Yun Maxiao was handsome and it was easy for him to leave an impression on others. Yes, I'm Yun Maxiao, Yun Maxiao began. May I know your name? Although Yun Maxiao didn't have much experience with women, he was naturally easygoing and natural. I'm Li Luo and that's my senior brother Duan Tianyun, Li Luo replied. I have to hurry back to treat him. I'll repay you in the future. Li Luo hurriedly turned to leave. Miss Li Luo, Yun Maxiao called out from behind her. Li Luo stopped and turned back to look at him. Can I have a look at you? Only then did Li Luo realize that although she had taken off her mask, she was still wearing a veil. Li Luo casually removed her veil, revealing a beautiful face. Hero, we'll meet again. Li Luo cupped her fists toward Yun Maxiao once more, then turned back to her carriage. Ajio drove the carriage and quickly disappeared on the mountain path. Yun Maxiao looked away. Remembering that Lin Qingchen and Yun Ruoyan were still waiting for him at the Yuelu villa, he turned back toward it. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo were flying through the clouds toward the top of the Kongming Peak. The howling wind made it difficult for Yun Ruoyan to keep her eyes open, and her heart grew more and more restless as they ascended. She was about to see Kongming Academy, and it was only natural for her to be excited. As she felt her ascent slowing, she slowly opened her eyes. Look. Li Mo pointed in front of them and Yun Ruoyan turned to see a beautiful scene in front of her. There were no less than 100 buildings on the mountain peak. Even though the moonlight wasn't very bright, Yun Ruoyan could still see how grand the buildings were. That building at the top is the main hall of Kongming Academy, and that's the side hall, Li Mo explained. Yes. Yun Ruoyan listened intently to Li Mo's explanation, nodding her head like a chick pecking at grains of rice. What about the back? Yun Ruoyan asked, noticing that there were many small courtyards behind the tall buildings. That's where you'll be living in the future, Li Mo said. Remember, when you choose your residence, make sure it's closer to the south. What? Yun Ruoyan didn't understand. It's a secret, Li Mo replied, keeping her in suspense. By this time, Li Mo had already brought Yun Ruoyan to the skies above Kongming Academy. Where are you taking me? Yun Ruoyan asked, seeing that Li Mo was still flying on his sword. Are you sober now? Li Mo asked instead of answering Yun Ruoyan's question. More or less, Yun Ruoyan replied. I'm still a little dizzy. The reason why the Immortal's intoxication was so potent was because it had been brewed with a hallucinogenic drug that could cause one to become delirious. Normally, the hallucinogen would take effect after 3 cups, and the person would sleep for a day and a night after falling into a daze. However, the drug was clearly not as potent as it had been in Yun Ruoyan's hands. She only felt dizzy at first, but she quickly began to sober up, never once losing control of herself. In fact, all poisons would be less effective when used on Yun Ruoyan. This was all thanks to her unique constitution. Otherwise she would have died along with Lin Yueme soon after being poisoned by the shamanic beasts. However, she had stubbornly survived, which was why she had the opportunity to see Kongming Academy today. It seems like you're quite a good drinker. In that case, have a little more with me, Li Mo said as he directed Yun Ruian toward a tall tower at the top of Kongming Mountain. Li Mo brought Yun Ruian to the highest floor of the tower. Near the guardrail there was a couch and a wooden table. On the wooden table there was a wine flask and 2 cups, as if someone had just been resting and drinking. When Li Mo arrived, he casually lay down on the bed and filled the 2 cups with wine. Sit, Li Mo said to Yun Ruian, who had been looking around. Oh. Yun Ruian nodded obediently before sitting down on the soft bed next to Li Mo. Seeing that Li Mo was about to take a sip of wine, she raised her own cup at him and downed it in one gulp. Yun Ruian's 2 lifetimes worth of experience had taught her that in an unfamiliar environment, she had to be obedient and understand the situation before making any plans. Do you often come here to drink with others? Yun Ruian asked, noticing that Li Mo was very familiar with the place and that there were 2 cups in front of him. There aren't many people I can drink with, Li Mo replied. Most of the time I come alone. Li Mo's tone was light and emotionless, but Yun Ruian could hear a hint of loneliness in his voice. Surely people in positions of power would be lonely, Yun Ruian thought. Yun Ruian didn't lie down casually like Li Mo. Instead she hugged her knees and sat on the bed like a cat. As Li Mo looked at her, he felt as if she were so small that he would be able to hold her in his palm. Sensing Li Mo's gaze, Yun Ruian retracted her gaze and turned to Li Mo. Seeing that Li Mo was reaching for a flask of wine, Yun Ruian handed him her empty cup. Another cup. Li Mo smiled and filled her cup. Don't get drunk. The sunrise will be spectacular and it'd be a pity to miss it. It's fine. Yun Ruian sipped the wine in her cup. If you miss it, I'll come back with you next time. Li Mo raised an eyebrow, a smile on his lips. He was in a rare good mood. Yun Ruian, who had always been wary of everything around her, as if she would strike out with her claws at any moment, was slowly letting down her guard. Yun Ruian had already woken up from her drunken stupor, but after drinking 2 cups of wine, her head began to feel dizzy again. However, the dizziness he felt now was completely different from the dizziness he felt before. Before, the dizziness was heavy and she had to expend a great deal of energy to resist it. Now, however, it was light, pleasant, and enjoyable. One must enjoy life to the fullest. Don't let the wine cup be empty against the moon. Yun Ruian raised the cup of wine above her head and began reciting a poem. Moon, don't run away. Yun Ruian raised her cup to the moon, but the hazy moon hid behind the clouds. Don't worry. Yun Ruian quickly regained her spirits. She turned to Li Mo and smiled. Here's to the slaughtering king, cheers. Yun Ruian downed the wine in her cup, let out a long sigh and lay down on the bed. When Li Mo saw Yun Ruian's blushing face, he couldn't help but think back to the flower viewing party, to the lake in the Phoenix Forest. His eyes couldn't help but become a little blurred. Yun Ruian closed her eyes and the cup in her hand slowly loosened. Just as it was about to fall to the ground, Li Mo reached out and caught it. Yun Ruian's long eyelashes fluttered, and her lips curled up in a faint smile. The peach blossom veil accentuated her already small face, making it seem even more delicate. Li Mo couldn't help but reach out to caress her face, feeling that it was a little cold. It was almost autumn and the night was chilly. Moreover, they were high up in the sky. Yun Ruian was drunk and it was inevitable that she would feel a little cold. Li Mo frowned slightly. In a daze, Yun Ruian felt a large warm hand on her cheek, warm and gentle. She couldn't help but reach out and grasp that large hand, pressing her cheek against the soft, smooth palm. Li Mo smiled as he leaped over the wooden table between them and lay down by Yun Ruian's side, his loose, ink-colored robe covering Yun Ruian's petite figure. Feeling the warmth, Yun Ruian turned around and moved closer to Li Mo, their breaths touching. Li Mo couldn't help but take a deep breath. Yun Ruian's body fragrance had always been irresistible to him, and he didn't want to resist it. Li Mo's large hand supported the back of Yun Ruian's head as he gently kissed her on the lips. The sweet, refreshing scent of a woman, mixed with the aroma of wine, drew Li Mo deeper and deeper. Yun Ruian opened her eyes, and the familiar sensation on her lips became even more real. Li Mo. Yun Ruoyan pushed against Li Mo's chest, trying to break free. Li Mo wouldn't give her the opportunity. His large hand held her back, trapping her in his embrace, and the kiss became more and more difficult to control. Yun Ruoyan could feel that Li Mo's kiss was different from before. In the past, regardless of whether it was a teasing kiss or a gentle kiss, it had always been light and shallow, never so deep. Li Mo's kiss, however, made her afraid. Yun Ruoyan, who had lived 2 lives, knew what it meant to be kissed like this. "Your Highness," Yun Ruoyan spat out with difficulty, "I'm not of marriageable age yet, and I'm not yet an adult." Chapter 147. Hearing Yun Ruoyan's words, Li Mo stopped moving. "All right, then I'll wait for you to grow up, little consort." By this time, Yun Ruoyan had already woken up from her drunken stupor. She immediately pushed against Li Mo's chest, struggled out of his grasp and sat up, taking in large gulps of air. "Why?" Yun Ruoyan suddenly asked after panting for a moment. Li Mo propped up his head with his hand. "Why what? Why would you like me? You're the slaughtering king, and there are thousands of women who would love to be your consort." Yun Ruoyan frowned as she asked the question that had been bothering her. Regardless of who Li Mo really was, he was the slaughtering king of the Li Kingdom, a god of death who could shake the entire Qinyuan continent with a single stomp of his feet. Yun Ruoyan immediately thought of the silver-haired, silver-browed, devilishly handsome man. Actually, she was extremely curious about Li Mo's true identity, but she didn't dare to reveal it in the face of her previous experience. Since he wanted to be Li Mo, she would treat him as Li Mo. "I don't know either. You're so ugly and you don't have much of a noble background. Why would I like you?" Li Mo met Yun Ruoyan's questioning gaze and smiled. "Perhaps it's just as you say, I'm sick." At first, Yun Ruoyan had indeed thought that Li Mo was sick. For him to be so affectionate toward a face that even she found revolting, and for him to have the heart to kiss her, he had to be a ruffian. But that wasn't the case either. After debunking that guess, Yun Ruoyan felt that Li Mo had nothing better to do, and was merely trying to relieve his boredom. However, when she had been abducted by the Daoist priest, Li Mo had gone to save her despite his injuries, aggravating his injuries. Even after his identity had been exposed, he hadn't really hurt her. Furthermore, Li Mo had helped her in all sorts of ways over the years. Yun Ruoyan wasn't a fool. She could sense that Li Mo wasn't just playing with her to relieve boredom. She could even sense that Li Mo seemed to have some sort of affection for her. However, her painful experience from her past life had taught her that if someone treated her well for no reason at all, it was highly likely that they had ulterior motives. In that case, what did Li Mo want? Was she beautiful? She had it, but she never revealed it. Identity? She had it too, but she could ignore it in front of Li Mo. Then why? There must be a reason behind it. But if Li Mo didn't say anything, there was nothing she could do. Li Mo said as he sat up and looked in front of him. Yun Ruoyan turned her head to see a red sun slowly rising from the horizon. The dusky world gradually brightened with the appearance of the red sun. The clouds, the mountains, and the flying birds in the sky were all dyed red. In the vast sky, everything seemed to awaken at this moment. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but get off the couch, walk to the railing and look down. Kongming Academy's hundreds of buildings were arranged in a picturesque manner. The roof of the building was made of some unknown material, but it shone brightly under the sunlight. Yun Ruoyan gazed into the distance, only to see an endless mountain range stretching all the way to the north, with no end in sight. In both her past and present lives, she had never seen such a magnificent sight. The Kongming Mountains are so majestic. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but exclaim. That's not the Kongming Mountains but the Yueli Mountains. Li Mo had gotten off the couch and walked to Yun Ruoyan's side. The Yueli Mountains? The home of the Beastkin? Yun Ruoyan turned to him. Back at her family's academy, she had heard her instructor talk about the geography of the Qinyuan continent, but it had been so long that she couldn't remember it clearly. The Kongming Mountains run east-west, extending into the Qin Kingdom in the east and into the Li Kingdom in the west. Across the Kongming Mountains is the Yueli Mountains. The Yueli Mountains run north-south, spanning more than half the continent. Li Mo pointed out as he explained. The Beastkin Kingdom was built in a secluded area of the Ueli Mountains. Li Mo paused, his gaze turning somber as he gazed at the Ueli Mountains. Yun Ruoyan could sense the change in Li Mo's mood, but she didn't ask. When the sun had completely risen above the horizon and the skies were bright, Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan left Kongming Peak. "Where are we going now?" Yun Ruoyan asked Li Mo loudly. Li Mo held Yun Ruoyan's waist with one hand and her waist with the other. "Yen, where else do you want to go?" Yun Ruoyan wanted to say that she wanted to see the sea. It was said that there were aquatic monsters and beautiful mermaids in the eastern sea of the Qin Kingdom. She also wanted to see the desert where there were oases and mirages from another world. Or she could go to the Ueli Mountains to see the ruins of the Beastkin Kingdom, which would surely be interesting. However, as soon as Yun Ruoyan opened her mouth, she realized what she was about to say and swallowed her words. That night had been so surreal that Yun Ruoyan felt as if she couldn't even make sense of reality. She slapped her forehead, reminding herself that she had to return to the Yun Manor as soon as possible. Her father might not have noticed that she hadn't returned all night, but her brother Yun Moxiao would surely be frantic. "Send me back to the Yun Manor," Yun Ruoyan said disinterestedly. "Didn't you say that you were going to buy some poison ingredients when you had the money?" Li Mo asked. "Don't you have money now?" If Li Mo hadn't brought it up, Yun Ruoyan would have forgotten that she had earned 1,000 gold from the Darkened Heavens pill last night. After paying the auction house 100 gold in commission, she still had 900 gold left. Yun Ruoyan still owed Li Mo 1,000 gold, and that wasn't enough to pay him back. Li Mo definitely wasn't lacking in money, so Yun Ruoyan didn't insist on paying him back. "I have to go home first and report to my brother before I can do anything else." Li Mo was a little unhappy when he thought of how tightly Yun Ruoyan had hugged her brother's waist. Even if he was her brother, there was a difference between a man and a woman. How could his future princess be so intimate with another man? 2 years from now, if I still haven't recovered from my illness, I'll marry you into the Yun Manor, Li Mo declared coolly. Yun Ruoyan stared blankly at Li Mo, then nodded obediently. Oh. In her heart she thought, who knows what will happen 2 years from now. As a result, she didn't take Li Mo's words to heart. "In the next 2 years, you'll have to keep your distance from men," Li Mo continued. "You're not allowed to eat alone with men, nor are you allowed to have intimate contact with them." Slaughtering King. Yun Ruoyan looked up at Li Mo once more. 2 years from now, when you recover from your illness, will you no longer want to marry an ugly woman like me? We'll talk about it when the time comes, depending on my mood. Li Mo's answer left Yun Ruoyan speechless. After a moment of silence, Yun Ruoyan felt a little more at ease. If Li Mo had said that he would marry her for sure, she would have felt even more uneasy. Li Mo took Yun Ruoyan to the skies above the Yun Manor. At that moment, Yun Lan was meditating in the courtyard of his residence. He felt a powerful aura appear in the air above his residence. He opened his eyes and looked up, only to see a streak of green sword light slowly descend in the direction of his residence. A satisfied smile appeared on Yun Lan's face. Yun Ruoyan's guess was right. Yun Moxiao was extremely anxious. He had come to his residence early in the morning to ask if Yun Ruoyan had returned home. Peony and the other maids had also been waiting for Yun Ruoyan the entire night. When they saw Yun Moxiao's anxious expression, they were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Yun Moxiao had heard from Lin Qingchen last night that Yun Ruoyan had been taken away by Pei Xiao. Given that she hadn't returned for the entire night, she had to be at the Pei Manor. Lin Qingchen told Yun Moxiao that Yun Ruoyan seemed to have some sort of plan in mind. Yun Moxiao was afraid that Yun Ruoyan's plan would be exposed and she would be trapped by the Peis. "No, I can't just wait here like this. I'll go to the Pei Manor and ask for her." Yun Moxiao couldn't wait any longer and turned to leave. "Look, Miss Yun's back," Shilan called out from behind him. At the same time, Yun Moxiao could feel a powerful aura approaching his residence. He raised his head and saw 2 figures standing atop a green sword aura. One of them was Yun Ruoyan, and although he didn't recognize the other, he could clearly sense his powerful aura. The 2 figures standing together gave people a very intimate feeling. Could he be the legendary Slaughtering King? Yun Moxiao couldn't think of a man who could be so intimate with Yun Ruoyan, and who had such a high level of cultivation. Li Mo sheathed his sword and the 2 of them landed on the ground. Brother. Yun Ruoyan walked toward her brother. However, Yun Maxiao's gaze went past her and straight to Li Mo. Li Mo's hands were clasped behind his back, completely ignoring Yun Maxiao's gaze. Brother, he's the slaughtering king. Yun Ruoyan could feel her brother's solemn gaze on Li Mo, so she introduced him. Yun Ruoyan was inexplicably nervous, even more so than when she had brought Li Mo to see her brother. Li Mo's gaze also moved from Yun Ruoyan to Yun Maxiao and their gazes met. Yun Maxiao felt as if Li Mo's eyes were like black holes, carrying with them a mysterious and eerie aura that he had never encountered before. He wanted to avert his gaze but he found that he couldn't. Yun Maxiao's heart trembled and he couldn't help but take a step back. Brother, what's the matter? Yun Ruoyan hurriedly rushed forward to support her brother. Yun Maxiao tried his best to straighten his back, but he didn't say a word. Li Mo's gaze finally left Yun Maxiao and landed on Yun Ruoyan's hands holding his arm. Come here. Li Mo's tone carried a hint of command. Chapter 148. Li Mo withdrew his gaze from Yun Maxiao, who heaved a sigh of relief, but his face was pale and his forehead was beaded with sweat. Yun Ruoyan didn't know what was going on between the two men, but it was clear that Yun Maxiao was on the losing end, and her heart ached for him. Li Mo, what are you doing? Yun Ruoyan asked angrily. Ruoyan Xiao, Yun Lan's voice came from outside the courtyard. How can you be so rude to the slaughtering king? Kneel. Peony, Xilan and the rest of the maids finally came to their senses. They hurriedly greeted the slaughtering king and knelt down in unison. Yun Maxiao also knelt down. Yun Maxiao pays his respects to the slaughtering king. Please forgive me for my insolence just now. Under Yun Lan's stern gaze, Yun Ruoyan had no choice but to follow suit. The slaughtering king has arrived. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. Yun Lan quickly stepped forward and bowed to Li Mo. Li Mo didn't even look at him. His hand was still in midair as he called out to Yun Ruoyan, come here. Yun Ruoyan raised her head to look at Li Mo. She really didn't understand what was wrong with this man. Ruoyan, His Highness is calling for you. Why aren't you going over? Yun Lan ordered. Yun Ruoyan frowned as she stood up and walked up to Li Mo. Li Mo took her hand and said, don't forget what you promised me. Yun Ruoyan froze. What had she promised him? Oh, she remembered now. She's not allowed to eat alone with a man, and she's not allowed to have any intimate contact with a man. Yun Ruoyan's frown deepened. Yun Ruoyan hadn't been serious when she promised him, but Li Mo was actually serious. That was her own brother. Yun Ruoyan wanted to protest, but Li Mo didn't give her the chance. Official Yun. Li Mo turned to Yun Lan. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you any longer. Your Highness has a myriad of affairs to attend to every day. This subject is deeply afraid. Yun Lan bowed, his voice full of emotion as he spoke in official language. Yun Lan didn't hear Li Mo's voice for a long time, but Yun Ruoyan did. Father, the slaughtering king has left. Yun Lan raised his head and saw a streak of green light speeding toward the slaughtering king's manor. Father, you should hurry to court as well. It's almost too late, Yun Maxiao said. Yun Lan nodded and turned to leave. As he did so, he looked deeply at Yun Ruoyan. Yun Lan had never seen Li Mo so concerned about a woman before. If he doubted the sincerity of Li Mo's feelings for Yun Ruoyan before, he was now certain that the slaughtering king was truly interested in the Yun family's daughter. Yun Lan couldn't help but sigh. As expected of Lin Yume's daughter. Even though she hadn't inherited her mother's beauty, she was still able to attract someone like the slaughtering king. Brother, are you all right? Ruoyan, where did you go last night? The siblings asked each other at the same time. I'm fine. The slaughtering king didn't hurt me. I heard from Xianxia that you left with Paizio last night. Why did the slaughtering king send you back here? Yun Ruoyan instructed Peony and Xilan to prepare breakfast before telling Yun Maxiao about what had happened last night. As the siblings spoke, they walked into the room. Did the slaughtering king really say that he wants to take you as his consort? Yun Maxiao stopped. Yun Ruoyan also stopped and nodded at her brother. Didn't you say that you were only asking for his help? How did it turn out to be real? Yun Maxiao's expression was very serious. He's just saying it. He might not actually marry me when the time comes, Yun Ruoyan smiled. I'm still underage, and even if he were to marry me, it'd be 2 years later. Yun Ruoyan's heart wasn't as relaxed as she appeared. She couldn't figure out Li Mo's thoughts, and he had become an uncertain factor in her life. She didn't like this feeling of uncertainty. However, although Li Mo was a source of trouble for Yun Ruoyan, it wasn't the biggest problem she was currently facing, so she could put it aside for now. Yun Maxiao's heart was in turmoil. Ever since he had joined the army, he had heard many legends about Li Mo, and in his mind he had always thought of Li Mo as someone like his own master. Today, however, was the first time he had seen Li Mo in person, and he was so young that he didn't seem much older than he was. Suspicious, he couldn't help but use his spiritual energy to test Li Mo, only to be shocked by what he saw. Yun Maxiao was confident that his cultivation wasn't low, but in front of Li Mo he was like a child, unable to retaliate at all. Yun Maxiao had the same doubts as Yun Ruoyan. Why would someone as noble and powerful as Li Mo be interested in his little sister? It wasn't that Yun Maxiao felt that Yun Ruoyan wasn't good enough for the Slaughtering King, but that the Slaughtering King was simply too far away from them. This matter was too unexpected, too surreal. During breakfast, Yun Ruoyan remembered that her brother had recognized Li Luo as the owner of the sachet, and had even chased after her. She asked him if he had succeeded. Li Luo recounted what had happened in the dueling arena to Yun Ruoyan. You helped Li Luo save a beastkin? Yun Ruoyan was a little puzzled by her brother's recount. Li Luo was a maidservant of the Slaughtering King's manor, and her saving the beastkin represented the Slaughtering King's order. After all, Li Mo was an executioner who had slaughtered tens of thousands of beastkin. Why would he save a single beastkin? Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but think of the beastkin she had seen in the Forest of Dead Souls kneeling before Li Mo and addressing him as the Beast King. Although Li Mo hadn't acknowledged himself as the Beast King, his identity was definitely closely related to the beastkin. Li Mo, who are you? Just as Yun Ruoyan was deep in thought, she suddenly heard her brother's question. You know her? Yun Maxiao hadn't told Yun Ruoyan the girl's name, but Yun Ruoyan had mentioned it herself. Yes, her name's Li Luo, a maidservant of the Slaughtering King's manor. I've seen her before. She's from the Slaughtering King's manor? Yun Maxiao was once again surprised. Yun Ruoyan told her brother that if he wanted to see Li Luo, she could bring him to the Slaughtering King's manor. Yun Maxiao knew that Li Luo must be busy treating Duan Tianyun's wounds, and he would only be adding to her troubles if he visited her now. He shook his head and said that he'd visit her in a few days. After breakfast, Yun Maxiao returned to his own courtyard, where Yun Ruoyan began her daily cultivation. She was currently working hard to become an 8th rank blade master. Once she became an 8th rank blade master, she would be able to cultivate her own immortal sword. Once she became one with her sword, she would be able to fly on her own sword like Li Mo and Yun Maxiao. The thought of one day being able to soar through the skies filled Yun Ruoyan's heart with motivation. Yun Ruoyan cultivated all the way until evening. She didn't even have time to eat lunch before she finally filled her spiritual vortex with fire-attuned spiritual energy. After her cultivation session, Yun Ruoyan had Xilan prepare some food for her. After eating, she took a short nap. Before Li Mo left, he whispered in her ear that he'd bring her to the market that night to buy some poison ingredients, so that she could rest well. When Li Mo returned to the Slaughtering King's manor, he learned that Li Luo had managed to save her senior brother, but that he was severely injured and had lost an arm, so he went to visit him. In one of the guest rooms of the Slaughtering King's manor, Duan Tianyun lay unconscious on his bed. Li Luo had been taking care of him for an entire night, and she was also exhausted. Li Luo heard footsteps behind her. When she opened her eyes, she saw that the sky was already bright. She thought that the footsteps behind her were the maidservants who had finished brewing the medicine. She said, "Put the medicine aside. I'll feed it later." "His injuries are very serious," Li Mo commented when he saw that Duan Tianyun's eyes were tightly shut, his face pale and bloodless. When Li Luo heard Li Mo's voice, she hurriedly stood up and greeted him. Li Mo nodded, took out a sandalwood box and handed it to Li Luo. "This is a high-grade spiritual pill. It's very effective in treating external wounds." Li Luo hesitated for a moment before accepting the box. In a trembling voice she said, "I thank you on behalf of my senior brother, Your Highness." "Do you blame me?" Li Mo asked as he turned to leave. "I wouldn't dare," Li Luo replied. Li Mo nodded and turned to leave. Li Luo actually blamed Li Mo a little. If he hadn't suddenly changed his route to the dueling arena instead of the auction house, she might have been able to save Duan Tianyun long ago. If Li Mo hadn't suddenly left the dueling arena, the manager wouldn't have dared to act so arrogantly, and Duan Tianyun wouldn't have been injured so badly. But what right did she have to blame him? After all, she was just a slave bought by Li Mo. She had no right to blame her master for his actions. In fact, Li Luo should be grateful that Li Mo had agreed to her request to save Duan Tianyun, and had even taken out a high-grade spiritual pill to treat him. Li Luo thought back to more than a year ago when she had been sold to a brothel in the Yu Kingdom for auction. She had been locked in an iron cage in the main hall, wearing only a thin layer of clothing that covered her private parts. She had been surrounded by a horde of men with disgusting faces. They had stared at her body with lewd gazes and used filthy language to comment on her, talking about how they would torture her after they bought her. Many people had bid for her not only because of her beauty, but also because it was rumored that beastkin women were suitable as sexual furnaces. As a result, Li Luo knew that these men had bought her to use her as a sexual furnace. She knew how pitiful it would be to become a sexual furnace, and she was even prepared to perish together with the man. In the end, there were only 2 people left sitting in the VIP seats among the many bidders. Li Luo raised her head from the cage. One of them was dressed like a rich young master, while the other was dressed in a black robe, his hair loose and unkempt. The young master had been the first to make a bid, and only at the last moment did the black-robed man attempt to rob her. No matter how much the young master offered, the black-robed man would always outbid him by 100 taels of silver. Finally, the young master flew into a rage and took out his bow, intending to shoot Li Luo to death. What he couldn't have, he couldn't allow to fall into someone else's hands. Li Luo looked at the cold arrowhead, but a smile of relief appeared on her face. Chapter 149. The cold arrowhead shot towards Li Luo, who closed her eyes in relief. But the arrow didn't pierce the flesh and death didn't come. Li Luo only heard the sound of porcelain shattering not far from her. It turned out that the black-robed man had used the wine cup in his hand to stop the arrow that was flying towards her. The noble young master was furious. He brought a group of servants to find trouble with the black-robed man. The black-robed man was alone, but he easily beat up more than a dozen strong men. The nobleman released a sleeve dart to sneak attack him, but it was blocked by him with a flick of his sleeve. The sleeve dart directly sank into the nobleman's head. Li Luo curled up in the cage, watching as the black-robed man walked towards her. He reached out, 2 fingers glowing with white light as he easily broke the lock on the cage. He walked into the cage and held out his hand to her. "Can we go now?" The man's voice was low and indifferent, but it was deeply imprinted in Li Luo's mind. Li Luo shook her head. After being fed the bone-softening powder, she had no strength left in her. She couldn't even open her mouth to speak. The man took off his black robe and draped it over her. He carried her out of the iron cage and out of Fengyue brothel. "He's His Highness, the slaughtering king of the Li Kingdom." At this point someone recognized the man and the entire Fengyue brothel was in an uproar. "Don't tell me he's the legendary slaughtering king who suppressed the Beastkin's rebellion?" Someone exclaimed in disbelief. "That's right. That black robe and such a high level of cultivation can only belong to the slaughtering king. No wonder he could be so calm after killing the young prince. It seems like this tyrant of the Yu country has died in vain." Only then did Li Luo realize that the man hugging her was the slaughtering king, the one who had killed tens of thousands of her beastkin. Duan Tianyun's pained cry interrupted Li Luo's train of thought. "Senior brother." Li Luo hurried over to help Duan Tianyun, who was struggling to sit up. "My arm." Duan Tianyun looked at his empty right shoulder, his eyes filled with pain and despair. "Senior brother, even without your right arm, you are still the #1 warrior of our beast race," Li Luo consoled. She opened the sandalwood box in her hand and took out the spirit herb, handing it to Duan Tianyun. Duan Tianyun stared at the pill in Li Luo's hand in astonishment. He had only heard about high-grade pills from the elders in his clan, but he had never seen one with his own eyes. "Is this a high-grade spirit herb?" Duan Tianyun asked doubtfully. "Yes." Li Luo nodded. Senior brother, eat it and you'll recover quickly. Where did you get the top-rank elixir? Duan Tianyun asked worriedly. They were slaves here and he was worried that Li Luo had stolen the spirit herb. If she was caught, the consequences would be dire. This is a reward from His Highness. Li Luo understood Duan Tianyun's concerns and hurriedly explained, His Highness just came to see you and upon seeing your injuries bestowed this pill upon you. Only then did Duan Tianyun relax. When I recover, I must personally thank your highness. When Duan Tianyun had regained consciousness, Li Luo had told him that she had been rescued by a king and was now working as a servant in this king's manor. This time, it was this king who had helped her track down his whereabouts. Li Luo had intentionally concealed the fact that this king was Li Mo, and Duan Tianyun was filled with gratitude toward Li Mo. Li Luo watched as Duan Tianyun swallowed the pill, his face immediately turning rosy. She was happy but at the same time her heart sank. How was she supposed to tell Duan Tianyun that Li Mo was the slaughtering king? Yun Ruoyan was taking a nap on her bed when she suddenly felt someone sit by her bedside. At the same time she sensed a familiar aura. Yun Ruoyan opened her eyes and saw Li Mo staring at her intently. You're awake. Yes, Yun Ruoyan replied expressionlessly. Li Mo raised an eyebrow, displeased by Yun Ruoyan's cold attitude. Suddenly he leaned down toward her. Yun Ruoyan stretched out her hand and pressed it against Li Mo's chest, and the two of them stared at each other. How ugly! Li Mo suddenly exclaimed. Because Yun Ruoyan knew that Li Mo would be coming that night, she hadn't washed off the birthmark on her face. Because she had been sleeping she hadn't put on a veil and the fake birthmark on her right cheek was clearly visible. In order to avoid a repeat of Yun Moyuan's misfortune, Yun Ruoyan didn't mind the trouble of making a fake birthmark as big and ugly as possible. Li Mo's mood worsened when he saw the fake birthmark on Yun Ruoyan's face, and his expression was one of undisguised disgust. Yun Ruoyan froze. She interpreted Li Mo's simple disgust at her fake birthmark as his own disgust for her, and her heart suddenly ached. Indeed, every man in this world loved beauty. Li Mo was also a man and he was no exception. Yun Ruoyan smiled coldly. I've been ugly for more than a day or two. If you don't like it, please keep your distance. Yun Ruoyan's attention was distracted, and she didn't push him away as hard as she could. Li Mo took the opportunity to lean in and kiss her. Yun Ruoyan's eyes widened in anger and she began punching Li Mo with both hands. The more Yun Ruoyan struggled, the more ferocious Li Mo's kiss became. Only when she gave up struggling did he release her. Didn't you think I was ugly? Yun Ruoyan panted. What do you mean by that? It can't be helped, Li Mo replied. No matter how ugly you are, I can only love you. Yun Ruoyan didn't understand what Li Mo was implying. Frowning, she muttered, You're sick. That's right, and quite sick. Li Mo smiled. If you don't want to go to the market, I don't mind spending some time with you. Li Mo was about to lean in again, but Yun Ruoyan didn't try to be brave. I'll go. Who said I wasn't going? Yun Ruoyan got up. Because she was still dressed, she only needed to put on a veil before she could leave. The two of them left through the rear window. Li Mo didn't ride on his sword, and the two of them boarded a carriage waiting for them at the back of the manor. After handing the reins to Li Mo, the coachman left and Li Mo drove the carriage back to the market. Why aren't you flying on your sword today? Yun Ruoyan's upper body was sticking out of the carriage's curtains. Flying on a sword requires spiritual energy, and I didn't get my spiritual energy for nothing. Li Mo tilted his head and glanced at Yun Ruoyan. Besides, it's boring to do everything in one go. It's fun to drive a carriage slowly through the streets. The night's long and we don't have to rush. Yun Ruoyan didn't know how to respond. Why aren't you talking? Seeing Yun Ruoyan's silence, Li Mo spoke up. You're even cuter when you're drunk and you even talk and laugh like a teenage girl. Now that you're silent, you seem even older than me. You're right, Yun Ruoyan replied. I've always been old and you've all been fooled by my appearance. Yun Ruoyan was already in her 30s in both her past and present life. Wasn't that old? Haha. Li Mo laughed. You're truly different from the rest. Not only do you like being ugly, you also like being old. I'm afraid that no one else would want an old and ugly Yen. Yun Ruoyan rolled her eyes, not knowing how to respond. After a long silence, Yun Ruoyan finally spoke up. Did Li Qianhan tell you about a request you've made of me? Yun Ruoyan had saved Li Mo from the lake and he had made a request of hers. Her request was for Li Mo to ensure Yun Moxiao's safety for 3 years. He did, Li Mo replied. The one who was in my courtyard this morning was my brother, Yun Moxiao. I know. Yun Ruoyan glared at him. If you knew, why did you? Do you remember what you promised me? Li Mo interrupted Yun Ruoyan. But he's my brother. We're from the same mother. Yun Ruoyan protested loudly. Then is he a man? Li Mo asked. As long as he's a man. Yun Ruoyan's face darkened and she was completely speechless. The two of them arrived at the entrance of the market in silence and passed through the passageway into the market. The market at night was even livelier than it had been during the day. Yun Ruoyan looked at the various poison-refining ingredients on display at the stalls, and she immediately began to search for them. Qiuqiu gave Yun Ruoyan a long list of ingredients. According to Qiuqiu's list, even with her current 900 gold, she would only be able to purchase a small portion of the ingredients. As a result, Yun Ruoyan decided to buy the most important ingredients first, and then take a look at the other stalls to understand the price, appearance and properties of the remaining ingredients in preparation for future purchases. Yun Ruoyan wandered from stall to stall, chatting with the vendors, asking about prices and discussing the medicinal properties of the ingredients. She was becoming more and more adept at this. Li Mo followed behind Yun Ruoyan with his arms crossed. He watched as she nitpicked at the ingredients, haggled with the vendors, and became more and more eloquent with her words. There wasn't the slightest hint of the unfamiliarity she had when she first entered the market. Li Mo couldn't help but praise Yun Ruoyan's adaptability. Yun Ruoyan spent nearly 4 hours buying more than 20 poison-refining ingredients, and she had spent most of her money. However, she didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. Instead, she continued to wander from stall to stall. Even after she had walked through more than half of the market, Yun Ruoyan still felt like she hadn't had enough. Yun, didn't you say you were going to the Lin Manor? Li Mo reminded her. It's already morning. Only then did Yun Ruoyan look up from her stall. She had almost forgotten that she was going to the Lin Manor today. She had given Pei Zio a soul-stealing pill, giving him a deadline of 3 days to steal the tiger canine arrowheads and 2 high-grade spiritual pills and deliver them to the Lin Manor. Today was the 2nd day, and Pei Zio should have succeeded by now. The two of them exited the market and drove their carriage toward the Lin Manor. The carriage passed through the streets and alleys, passing through almost half the city before turning into a small alley near the Lin Manor. Li Mo's familiarity with the streets and alleys of the capital made Yun Ruoyan sweat. She was completely dizzy, and it wasn't until she saw the familiar walls of the manor, as well as the peach blossom branches poking out of them, that she finally felt a sense of familiarity. Just then Yun Ruoyan saw a familiar figure walking out from a small door in the back wall. It's Zhou Lin. Why is she out? Yun Ruoyan was just about to call out to her when an unfamiliar man suddenly appeared from the side. He quickly wrapped Zhou Lin in a cloth sack, then slung her over his shoulder. Chapter 150. In the morning, Zhou Yifeng and Zhou Lin were preparing to leave the grassy pavilion for the bamboo garden to take care of the magical beasts when Lin Qingxue arrived. Lin Qingxue had been very diligent in her archery practice. At first she hadn't even been able to hit the target, but now she was able to hit the bullseye every now and then. Seeing that she was serious, Zhou Yifeng began to teach her seriously. Originally, Lin Qingxue had agreed that she wouldn't be able to practice archery because of Lin Zainan's cultivation homework. But unexpectedly, Lin Qingxue worked so hard that she stayed up all night to finish her homework. The next day she showed up at the grassy pavilion. Zhou Lin was moved by Lin Qingxue's enthusiasm, and had Zhou Yifeng stay behind to help her practice while she went to the bamboo garden. When Zhou Lin arrived, Lin Qingchen told her that a demonic pig had given birth to a cub the night before, and that it needed to be looked after carefully. Lin Qingchen then went to the apothecary, leaving Zhou Lin alone in the bamboo garden. As usual, Zhou Lin prepared food for the magical beasts and fed them. After spending some time together, the magical beasts had become familiar with Zhou Lin and didn't make a fuss. After feeding all the magical beasts, Zhou Lin cut up some diced carrots and fed them to the demonic pig that had just given birth. Zhou Lin brought the diced carrots to the cage, where the demonic pig was snoring lightly. The little pig, however, was awake, staring at Zhou Lin with its round black eyes. Zhou Lin opened the cage and placed the diced carrots into a bowl. Just then the pig cub crawled over and rubbed against Zhou Lin's hand. Demonic pigs were fast-growing animals. They grew almost every hour, and they would stop growing after reaching a length of about 3 feet in 7 days. They were small, cute, and lively and were one of the favorite pets of humans. Because their meat was tender and fragrant, they were favored by the nobility. They could be sold for 100 gold taels on the market and were sought after by hunters. The newborn pig was only the size of a kitten, and its body was as white as snow, making it look like a cute snowball. At this time, it was like a naughty child, using its pink and soft nose to nudge Zhou Lin's hand, wanting to play with her. Zhou Lin took the little demon pig out of the cage and held it in her arms. The little demon pig struggled to get off the ground, so Zhou Lin bent down and placed it on the ground. The little demon pig spun around on the ground, biting its own tail. It was very funny and Zhou Lin couldn't stop giggling. After playing for a while, Zhou Lin wanted to put the little demon pig back in the cage, but just as she reached out, the little demon pig suddenly turned around and ran away, brushing past Zhou Lin's fingers. Zhou Lin quickly chased after it. Although the demon pig didn't run very fast, it was small and nimble. Zhou Lin couldn't catch it even after it ran around the garden twice. The little pig discovered the gate to the garden and suddenly ran towards it. Zhou Lin anxiously followed it out of little bamboo garden. Zhou Lin followed the little demon pig all the way to the back of the garden, where the little demon pig crawled out of a small hole in a corner of the garden. Zhou Lin saw that the back door wasn't closed, so she ran out through it without a second thought. Zhou Lin had just walked out of the back door, but she hadn't run 2 steps when an unfamiliar man suddenly blocked her way. Only then did she remember everyone's earlier warning. She turned around and was about to run when her vision suddenly darkened. Her body flew into the air, but she was caught by a cloth sack and slung over someone's shoulder. Frightened, Zhou Lin opened her mouth to scream, but as soon as she did, she heard a familiar woman's voice. "Sister Ruoyan, help!" Zhou Lin screamed. Zhui Yifeng practiced archery with Lin Qingxue for almost an hour before heading to Little Bamboo Garden, and Lin Qingxue requested to tag along. When the two of them arrived at Little Bamboo Garden, Zhou Lin was nowhere to be seen. They called out a few times but there was no response. Zhui Yifeng had a bad premonition. Surely the far-sighted king's men wouldn't be so bold as to sneak into the Lin Manor to kidnap Lin Qingxue in broad daylight. The two of them hurriedly left Little Bamboo Garden to search for her. In the process, they ran into a farmer responsible for delivering vegetables to the Lin Manor, who told them that a petite girl had fled to the back of the garden. The two of them hurriedly ran to the back of the garden, and when they saw the open back door, they hurriedly chased after her. As soon as they exited the back door, they saw a man dressed like a warrior, clutching Zhou Lin's neck as he confronted 2 people opposite him, Yun Ruoyan and a man dressed in a black robe. "Lin, Zhui Yifeng exclaimed as he tried to walk over. "Don't come any closer or I'll strangle her to death," the warrior threatened Zhui Yifeng. Zhui Yifeng recognized this man as one of the far-sighted king's retainers, Ji Heir. Zhui Yifeng had even had a drink with him before. "Ji Heir, let go of my sister." "Zhui Yifeng, His Highness misses you and your sister very much, so why don't you come back with me obediently?" Ji Heir asked Zhui Yifeng. "Us siblings aren't worthy of His Highness's concern," Zhui Yifeng replied. "Ji Heir, we're friends. If you let me go today I'll be eternally grateful." "Humph," Ji Heir sneered. "Since you're unwilling to come with me I'll take your sister away first." Zhui Yifeng doted on his sister, and this was something that the entire far-sighted king's manor knew. As long as he could capture Zhou Lin, he would be at Zhui Yifeng's weakest point. After Ji Heir finished speaking, he whistled loudly. "Not good, he's calling for his companions. Are you really unwilling to let go of our sister?" Yun Ruoyan looked at Ji Heir. "I'll give you one more chance." Yun Ruoyan could tell that Ji Heir was only a 5th-rank blade master, and she could kill him instantly with the Feilai blade. Ji Heir laughed proudly. "My men will be here soon and I'll definitely take Zhou Lin with me today." As soon as Ji finished speaking, a beam of white light shot out from Li Mo's fingers and into his forehead. Ji's eyes widened as he stared incredulously at Li Mo, who was pointing 2 fingers at him. He collapsed to the ground. It was an honor for him to be able to witness the power of spiritual energy kill someone from a distance before he died. Lin, Zhou Yifeng hurriedly ran over and removed the sack from Zhou Lin's body. Are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? Zhou Yifeng anxiously examined Zhou Lin. I'm fine, brother. Zhou Lin's neck was a little red, but she wasn't hurt in any other way. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Zhou Lin wasn't hurt, especially Lin Qingxue. If Zhou Lin had been kidnapped or injured, she would surely have blamed herself. Lin, why did you run out? Lin Qingxue walked over and tugged on Zhou Lin's hand. At this moment, the concerned expression on Zhou Yifeng's face disappeared and was replaced by a serious expression. He was so angry that he wanted to curse, but when he saw Zhou Lin's petite figure, he couldn't bring himself to say anything harsh. All he could do was stare at Zhou Lin intently. I was chasing a little demon pig, Zhou Lin murmured. Zhou Lin lowered her head. Then, as if she suddenly remembered something, she raised her head and said anxiously, where's my little demon pig? I'm going to find it. What are you looking for? Lin Qingxue grabbed her. Are you more important or a pig? Don't ever do something so dangerous again. All right, since there's nothing else to do, let's all enter the manor, Yun Ruoyan announced. As Lin Qingxue pulled Zhou Lin into the manor, they happened to pass by Li Mo. She suddenly stopped and turned to look at him in disbelief. You're not the slaughtering king, are you? In the entire capital, Lin Qingxue could only think of the slaughtering king, Li Mo, who was dressed in an ink-black robe that could emit spiritual energy and kill without leaving a trace. Li Mo didn't answer her question. Instead, he turned to Yun Ruoyan. I'll be heading back first. Yun Ruoyan nodded in agreement. You're the slaughtering king, right? You must be. Lin Qingxue was a little excited. She was a hot-blooded girl and she had long been fascinated by Li Mo. That's great. I've finally met the slaughtering king. Lin Qingxue exclaimed. Li Mo ignored Lin Qingxue and turned to leave, but Zhou Yifeng's low voice came from behind him. You're the slaughtering king, the one who slaughtered tens of thousands of beastkin. Li Mo continued walking toward his carriage as if he hadn't heard Zhou Yifeng's words. Although Li Mo didn't admit it, his silence was a tacit admission. Zhou Yifeng clenched his fists as he looked at Li Mo's back. The enemy who had slaughtered his own beastkin had suddenly appeared in front of him. Zhou Yifeng's heart was in turmoil. The image of his beastkin lying in pools of their own blood appeared before his eyes, and he could hear the anguished wails of his dying mother. Zhou Yifeng's father, the general of the beastkin Zhou Bufan, had died in that massacre. When his mother heard the news, her sickly body couldn't take it any longer, and she died with her eyes wide open. His mother's final instructions were to take good care of his sister and to avenge his father. Li Mo, hand over your life. Zhou Yifeng shouted as he punched at Li Mo's back. Li Mo, be careful. Yun Ruoyan knew that Zhou Yifeng wouldn't be able to hurt Li Mo, but she still couldn't help but warn him. Li Mo still didn't turn around, but an invisible barrier of spiritual energy seeped out of his body. Zhou Yifeng used all of his spiritual energy to land a punch on Li Mo's spiritual energy barrier. Zhou Yifeng felt a powerful rebound from Li Mo's body to his fist. Zhou Yifeng was sent flying out uncontrollably, crashing into the wall of the courtyard with a loud bang. Brother Zhou. Zhou Lin and Lin Qingxue ran over at the same time. Zhou Yifeng leaned against the wall, a trickle of blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Li Mo with beast-like eyes. Li Mo, I'm going to kill you to avenge my beastkin and my father. Zhou Yifeng spat out. Chapter 155. Yun Ruoyan quickly extinguished the fire and followed Uncle Lin to the main hall, where she found Pei Zio sitting at the lower seat sipping tea. Pei Zio. Yun Ruoyan called out before she even reached him. As soon as Pei Zio raised his head and saw Yun Ruoyan, his eyes began to glaze over. Yun Ruoyan knew at a glance that the soul-stealing pill had taken effect. I have something to say to young Master Pei in private. Uncle Lin, you can go ahead with your work. Uncle Lin noticed the sudden change in Pei Zio's expression. Having traveled extensively with Lin Zainan, he was quite observant of such things. What's wrong with young Master Pei? It's as if he's lost his soul. Miss, you better be careful. I understand, Uncle Lin. Uncle Lin retreated and Yun Ruoyan walked up to Pei Zio. He stood up stiffly, his gaze following Yun Ruoyan as if he were a dog waiting for orders. As a dog. There was no better description for him than this, and Yun Ruoyan was once again impressed by the soul-stealing pill's power. Have you gathered everything? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, mistress, Pei Zio replied mechanically. All right, let me see. Yun Ruoyan pointed at a wooden table. She noticed that Pei Zio was also wearing a storage ring, and she guessed that what she was looking for was inside. Pei Zio turned around mechanically and waved his hand on the table. 3 gold-threaded cedar boxes appeared on top of it. 3 boxes, 1 large and 2 small. Yun Ruoyan walked over and opened the large box. Inside were dozens of tiger canine arrowheads that glowed with a metallic luster, each one incredibly sharp. Yun Ruoyan counted 4 rows, each with 10 arrowheads for a total of 40 arrowheads. Yun Ruoyan was pleasantly surprised. She had thought that there would only be around 20 arrowheads, but she had nearly double that number. However, these arrowheads were much smaller than the ones she usually saw. Yun Ruoyan wondered if the increased number of arrowheads would affect the sharpness and hardness of the arrowheads. No, Pei Zio replied. Pei Zio said, Father said that the saber-toothed tiger's teeth are very hard and cumbersome materials. If they were refined to be the same size as ordinary arrowheads, it would be a burden instead and they wouldn't have an advantage in speed. This way, not only can it increase the quantity but it will also be easier for the user. Pei Zio said everything he knew. He continued, but there are advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage of making it smaller is that the arrowhead can't deal too much damage to the opponent. This requires the user to accurately shoot the arrowhead into the opponent's vitals. She had absolute confidence in Zhuo Yifeng's swordsmanship. After looking at the tiger canine arrowhead, Yun Ruoyan looked at the other 2 high-grade spiritual herbs in the boxes. Of the 2 spiritual herbs, one was of superior grade while the other was of superior grade. Pei Zio introduced the superior high-grade spirit medicine as the heaven-shifting pill. It was a type of spirit medicine that could quickly help a cultivator recover all the spiritual energy they had expended in battle. The other one was called the Remania pill. It was a kind of spiritual medicine that could be applied externally. Crush it and sprinkle it on the wound, and it had a miraculous effect on the healing of the wound. You've done very well. Yun Ruoyan stored the 3 boxes into her pocket dimension, then turned to Pei Zio. Thank you for your praise, mistress. Pei Zio's wooden expression revealed a trace of happiness at being praised. Under the effects of the soul-stealing pill, Pei Zio completely regarded Yun Ruoyan as his mistress, and his only goal was to complete the mission that she had given him. Yun Ruoyan couldn't bear to give Pei Zio the antidote, but if she didn't, that old fox Pei Xiang would surely discover it. Sigh, she really couldn't be too greedy. Leave the Lin Manor and head east along the main road. You'll find a brothel you frequent there. Go to the brothel and find the ugliest girl there. Then please her and sleep with her. After you wake up, take this pill I gave you. Yun Ruoyan took out the antidote for the soul-stealing pill and handed it to him. Yes, mistress, Pei Zio replied respectfully as he accepted the pill. All right, you can go now. Yun Ruoyan waved her hand and Pei Zio turned to leave. As Yun Ruoyan watched Pei Zio's departing figure, a wicked smile appeared on her face. After Pei Zio walked out of the Lin Manor, he didn't stop for even a moment. After a few minutes, Pei Zio arrived at a brothel known as the Yichun brothel. By this time it was almost evening, and there were already a number of girls soliciting customers outside. Young Master Pei, isn't this young Master Pei? The ladies outside recognized Pei Zio at first glance and hurriedly surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon. Because Pei Zio was generous and often brought friends from noble families to this brothel, he was considered a VIP. Young Master Pei, it's been a long time since you've come to the Yichun brothel. We've missed you so much. The girls escorted Pei Zio into the brothel. As long as Pei Zio didn't see Yun Ruoyan, he would speak and act like a normal person. He smiled. You're probably here for my silver, aren't you? Young Master Pei, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. Have you moved to a different brothel? Madame Lin walked up to him. Of course not, Pei Zio denied. In the entire capital, only Madame Lin's brothel has top-notch goods. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to find a better brothel. Pei Zio's words made Mama Lin's old face smile like a chrysanthemum. She moved closer to Pei Zio and said, Mama, I've left some fresh goods for young master. I'm just waiting for young master to taste them. Pei Zio was very particular about women. They had to be undeveloped and they had to be beautiful. In the jargon of the brothel, they had to be fresh. Pei Zio had always been willing to spend money on fresh goods like this. All right, madam, please introduce me to them. Pei Zio's eyes darted around the room as he spoke. Young Master Pei, please wait a moment. The girls will be here in a moment. Madame Lin headed to the back of the hall. Pei Zio directly sat on a seat in the main hall. At this time, a lady lowered her head and buried her face in her hands as she served him wine. She didn't know if she was nervous, but she twisted her leg and almost fell. Be careful, Mississippi, Pei Zio smiled as he helped her up. He was an elegant young master dressed in a white robe. His smile was as refreshing as a breeze, and it immediately caused a group of girls to fall head over heels for him. But what the girls found strange was that young Master Pei, who had always had high standards, was smiling at the ugly girl. In the past, young Master Pei would always frown whenever he saw her, so why was he smiling at her today? How uncanny. When the ugly girl saw Pei Zio smile at her, she immediately steadied herself and giggled foolishly. She had a flat face, slanted eyes, bald eyebrows and pouting lips. Her skin was as dark and rough as sand after being exposed to the sun, and there was a tinge of red mixed in with black. As he smiled, a mouthful of uneven yellow teeth appeared to be on the verge of popping out. The girls couldn't help but cover their noses and mouths, as if they could smell the stench coming from her mouth even from afar. Because she was so ugly, she had been given to the Ichuan brothel for free. Logically speaking, a girl as ugly as her shouldn't have been allowed out to scare anyone, but Madame Lin had a good eye for such things. It wouldn't have been surprising if she were just ugly, but she was so ugly that she was a rare sight. Some people liked to steal glances at such ugly things from time to time. But that wasn't the only reason. Another important use of this ugly girl was to serve as a foil to the other girls. Compared to this ugly girl, even the ugliest girls in the Ichuan brothel seemed like flowers. As Pei Zio stared at the ugly girl, Yunruan's hypnotic voice rang out in his ears. Find the ugliest girl in the brothel, please her and sleep with her. That's her, that's her, that's her. Pei Zio's eyes flickered between slackness and clarity. In truth, he wasn't sure if he was conscious or not. But he had to carry out his master's orders, so he asked, May I ask how I should address you and how old you are? As the other girls of the Ichuan brothel looked at Pei Zio with admiration and disgust at the ugly girl, Pei Zio looked at the ugly girl and asked gently. His gentle voice and watery eyes once more caused the other girls to fall into a daze, because the person he was talking to was that ugly girl. That was really strange. The ugly woman was overwhelmed by the favor and didn't know what to do. Then she let out a deep breath and mimicked the tone of a girl and said in a low, muffled voice, I am called Hua Hua. After introducing herself, Hua Hua even puffed out her impressive breasts, the only thing she could be proud of as a woman. Among the group of weak and frail girls, Hua Hua, who was tall and sturdy, had the biggest breasts. Hua Hua. As Pei Zio called out the ugly woman's name, a look of admiration appeared on his face. He said faintly, blooming flowers like brocade, flower field under the moon, wind flower, snow moon, beautiful flowers, round moon, what a good name. All the girls were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Young Master Pei was actually praising that ugly girl. How strange, how strange. Pa, is that true, young master? Hua Hua felt dizzy. The man in front of her and the words she was hearing seemed so surreal. When have I ever lied to you? Pei Zio stood up and brushed his hand over Hua Hua's beautiful face. This one has fallen in love with you at first sight. Would it be possible for me to spend the night with you? What? What did you say? Hua Hua's eyes widened in disbelief. What she wanted to do more than anything right now was to look in a mirror and see if she had really become more beautiful overnight. What, are you unwilling? Pei Zio frowned. No, that's not it. Hua Hua waved her hands. I'm just an errand boy. My mother doesn't allow me to receive guests. Don't worry about this girl, I'll take care of her. Just then Madame Lin brought in 7 or 8 fresh goods from the inner hall. These were all new arrivals, specially prepared to receive refined guests like Pei Zio. Young Master Pei, sorry to keep you waiting. Madame Lin swayed her hips, smiling as she walked. These girls are all fresh. Young Master Pei, please take your pick. There's no need. Young Master Pei's gaze swept over the beautiful girls. I've already found what I want. Ah? Who is it? Madame Lin asked in surprise. Among the girls in Yi Hong brothel, which one could catch the eye of the crafty young Master Pei? Sir. Pei Zio pointed to the girl beside him. Madame Lin looked in the direction he was pointing. Hee mommy, it's me. Hua Hua raised her beautiful face and grinned at Madame Lin. Chapter 156. Young Master Pei, who did you say you were interested in? Madame Lin thought that she was seeing things and asked Pei Zio again. That's her. Pei Zio once again pointed at Hua Hua in front of everyone. What's the matter, Madame Lin? Don't tell me you can't bear to part with her? Madame Lin was stunned. Oh no, young Master Pei, you're joking with me, aren't you? Mrs. Lin wasn't the only one who thought that Pei Zio was joking. All the girls present, the patrons, the servants, the thugs, whether they knew Pei Zio or not, all thought that he was joking. Just look at Hua Hua's face. Anyone who could stare at her for 3 breaths without looking away was considered strong. Anyone who said that they were interested in her must have been kicked in the head by a donkey or must be joking. Madame Lin didn't think that Pei Zio had been kicked in the head by a donkey. Mother. Hua Hua shyly called out to Madame Lin. Young Master Pei said that he wants to spend the night with me. What? Madame Lin's eyes widened. Say that again. It wasn't just Madame Lin who didn't believe Hua Hua's words. Everyone present didn't believe her either. This ugly girl must be crazy. She actually wants to spend the night with young Master Pei. Look at how ugly she is. Even a toad wouldn't be interested in her. She must be crazy for men. Young Master Pei was just teasing her, but she actually took it seriously. Why doesn't she take a piss and look at herself? Ugly words rang out one after another. Hua Hua innocently looked at Pei Zio with her chicken eyes, aggrieved and resentful. Pei Zio seemed to catch Hua Hua's gaze and immediately walked over to her side. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, he placed a hand on Hua Hua's muscular back and announced loudly, Miss Hua Hua is right. This young master has indeed taken a liking to her and wants to spend the night with her. As soon as Pei Zio said this, the entire crowd fell silent. The girls who were interested in Pei Zio but had never been in his eyes all heard the sound of their hearts breaking. The handsome and elegant young Master Pei wanted to spend the night with that ugly girl. How were they supposed to live? Mama Lin. Pei Zio broke the silence. As he spoke, he took out a banknote from his pocket and handed it to Mama Lin. Miss Hua Hua must be an artist. Mama, see if this is enough to buy her first night. Mother Lin looked at the stack of banknotes in front of her. Although she was still a little confused, she reached out to take the banknotes out of habit. Is it enough? Ah. Mother Lin replied blankly. Ah. That's enough, that's enough. It was really enough. Madame Lin didn't even need to count it. Just by looking at it, she could tell that the stack of banknotes was worth at least 400 or 500 taels of silver. Even the most beautiful girl in the Ichuan brothel was only worth this much. Hua Hua was a free gift. Mama Lin was raising her purely to ward off evil spirits. Who would have thought that one day Hua Hua would be able to earn money for herself? Madame Lin immediately came to her senses. What kind of place was the Ichuan brothel? Wasn't it a place where men could do whatever they wanted? Not to mention Hua Hua, as long as she paid, she would have no problem spending the night with her mother. Young Master Pei is truly different from the rest, huh? Madame Lin waved the handkerchief in her hand, as if she were talking to any of the beautiful girls in the Ichuan brothel. She circled around Hua Hua and praised her. Hua Hua is definitely a real artist. Most people wouldn't be able to bring themselves to praise her. Look at that figure, look at that big face. According to convention, Madame Lin should have praised Hua Hua a few more times, but she really couldn't find the right words. After a long while, she finally blurted out, "Who's lucky enough to endure such torment?" Mama. Hua Hua shyly twisted her muscular body, successfully disgusting a large group of people. But Hua Hua didn't care, because the extraordinarily handsome Pei Zio was currently looking at her with deep affection. Darling Pei. Although Hua Hua was very coarse, she had still been influenced by the Yichuan brothel for a few years, so she knew a little about the terms of endearment between a lady and her guest. As a result, she called out to Pei Zio in a hoarse and unpleasant voice. Darling Pei. Shoo. Pei Zio reached out and placed a finger on her thick, protruding lips. Miss Hua Hua, are you happy? I'm very happy, darling Pei. Find the ugliest girl and please her. The first order had been completed. The soul-stealing pill was still in effect, and Pei Zio had to complete Yun Ruian's second order. Miss Hua Hua, every moment of the night is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Pei Zio's peach blossom eyes sparkled as he looked at Hua Hua's body, successfully melting the lard that was her. Darling Pei, yes. Hua Hua's legs and waist had never felt so sore before, and even standing was difficult. Just then Pei Zio wrapped his arm around Hua Hua's thick waist and tried to lift her up, but his first attempt failed. On his second attempt, Pei Zio used his spiritual energy to lift Hua Hua up. Young Master Pei, young Master Pei. Madame Lin immediately ran to the front to lead the way. We've prepared a room for you, please. Madame Lin eagerly led the way, while Pei Zio carried Hua Hua all the way to the VIP room on the second floor. Pei Zio's figure disappeared around the corner of the staircase, and the bewitching girls finally awoke from their daze. Unable to suppress the complex emotions in their hearts, they began to weep loudly. Oh my God. What's going on? I don't want to live anymore. What just happened? Am I dreaming? Pinch me. Ouch, it hurts. It's not a dream, it's real. Oh my God, I don't want to live anymore. While the girls were in a frenzy, the men who had come to seek pleasure were relatively clear-headed. Was that the young master of the Pei family? I think he looks like him, but I can't be sure. That's him, I see him here often. He just bought the first night of that ugly Hua Hua Hua. How could he possibly have the heart to do it? Oh my, these nobles are tired of pretty girls, so they want something more exciting. What a hardcore taste. Ever since then, Pei Zio's reputation for hardcore taste had spread like wildfire throughout the capital. The next morning, Yun Ruian woke up early, washed up and put on a set of men's clothes. She was in a particularly good mood today because if everything went according to plan, there was going to be a good show that she had personally directed. Because she was dressed as a man, she didn't leave through the front door. Instead, she leaped out of the back window. She jumped off the wall and landed on the ground. She reached out to brush off the dust on her robe and walked toward the entrance of the alley. After exiting the alleyway, Yun Ruian walked along the main road toward the Yichuan brothel. A carriage happened to pass by her. She didn't pay much attention to it, but the person in the carriage happened to lift the curtains to let in some fresh air and saw her. Miss, what's the matter? Cui Ju asked when she saw her mistress staring out the window. Have the coachman stop the carriage by the roadside. I want to get off. Yi Qianying turned around. Yi Qianying's sudden order stunned Cui Ju. Didn't you hear what I said? Yi Qianying scolded impatiently. Are you deaf? I want to get off the carriage. Have the coachman stop the carriage. Oh yes, Mississippi. Cui Ju trembled in fright and quickly stuck her head out to talk to the coachman. Yi Qianying looked at Cui Ju's back, her heart filled with frustration. After He Xiang had been punished, she had changed 3 servants in a row, each dumber than the last. In short, none of them had gone her way. At this moment, Yi Qianying was on her way to the Yi manor. Her wedding to the crown prince was imminent, and the Yi family, which had never been fond of her, had begun to curry favor with her. Early in the morning, the Yi family had sent a carriage to pick her up, saying that they had prepared a dowry for her. They wanted Yi Qianying to see if she was satisfied with it, and if she wasn't, they could change it. But just a moment ago, Yi Qianying had seen Yun Ruian dressed as a man. Although Yun Ruian's face was still covered by a white veil, Yi Qianying had recognized her immediately. Something must have happened for her to appear on the streets so early in the morning. Without another word, Yi Qianying got off the carriage. She had Cui Ju and the coachman wait by the side of the road, then followed Yun Ruian by herself. She wanted to see what Yun Ruian was up to. Because it was still early, Yun Ruian strolled leisurely all the way to the Yichuan brothel. The Yichuan brothel's doors were tightly shut. Because it wasn't open during the day, it was deserted. Yun Ruoyan looked up at the second floor, but there was no movement. Even after an entire night of activity, the entire Ichuan brothel was still asleep. Yun Ruoyan wasn't in a hurry. She entered a breakfast stall opposite the brothel and ordered a steamer of steamed buns and a bowl of 8 treasure porridge. She took off her veil, folded it carefully and placed it in her sleeve pocket. Then she slowly began to eat her breakfast. Yi Qianying, who was hiding by the side of the stall, was confused. Wasn't the breakfast at home good enough for her to come all the way here so early in the morning? There were so many other breakfast stalls along the way, and yet she chose to eat at a place that was so close to the brothel. What a bitch. Yun Ruoyan ate a steamer of steamed buns, but there was still no movement from the Ichuan brothel, so she ordered 2 more deep-fried dough sticks. Uncle, when does the brothel usually move? Yun Ruoyan asked the old man who had brought her deep-fried dough sticks. The old man saw that Yun Ruoyan was a handsome youth, but he had an ugly birthmark on his face. The old man frowned. Brother, why are you asking about such things at such a young age? Uncle, you've misunderstood, Yun Ruoyan explained. My brother hasn't returned all night and my sister-in-law is making a fuss at home, so my parents sent me here to look for him. However, the brothel hasn't opened and I didn't dare barge in. I was hoping to find out more from you, Uncle. Oh, I see. The old man's frown eased. Soon some unscrupulous people leave the brothel before daybreak. Those who come here openly will leave around this time. Most of them will directly come to this old man's shop to finish their breakfast before leaving. Just then, a figure suddenly flew out from the second floor of the Ichuan brothel. As the figure flew out, there was a scream that pierced through the sky. This voice was rough and unpleasant to the ears, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Chapter 157. The old man in charge of the breakfast shop had just put away a pile of bowls when he heard a scream. He was so startled that he let go of the bowls, causing them to shatter and fall to the ground. Murder, murder. Help. Someone's been killed. Run. Following the woman's screams, the Ichuan brothel erupted into a cacophony of screams. Damn it, why are you so restless all day? The old man craned his neck to look at the figure that had fallen from the second floor, then looked back at the broken bowls with heartache before squatting down to pick up the broken pieces. Perhaps he'd seen too many of these scenes and it no longer piqued his interest. Just then Yun Ruoyan stood up, a cold smile on her lips. She took out a copper coin and placed it on the table. Yun Ruoyan put on her veil and walked toward the Ichuan brothel. Hey brother, the old man called out to Yun Ruoyan from behind, not wanting her to join in on the fun. Yun Ruoyan didn't seem to hear him. She had already reached the Ichuan brothel's main entrance and was standing next to the woman who had fallen from the second floor. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but think back to her past life, when Pei Zio hadn't returned home for several days. Yun Ruoyan had assumed that he was busy with his business and hadn't minded. However, a servant had told Yun Ruoyan that the reason Pei Zio hadn't returned home wasn't because he was busy with his business, but because he was visiting the courtesans of the Ichuan brothel. Under the servant's encouragement, Yun Ruoyan had mustered up the courage to come to the Ichuan brothel to look for him. However, before she could even meet Pei Zio, she had been humiliated by her mother. Madame Lin had summoned the ugly girl and pointed at her, telling Yun Ruoyan, "How can someone as ugly as you have the cheek to call a man home? If you don't give a man a way out, he'll divorce you." From that day onwards, Yun Ruoyan, who had already felt inferior and timid, became even more timid. She no longer dared to ask about Pei Zio's affairs, for fear that he'd divorce her. It was only later that Yun Ruoyan found out that the servant had been planted by Yi Qianying, and that the humiliation had been arranged by Yi Qianying. Yun Ruoyan sighed and squatted down by Huahua's side. As she looked at Huahua, who was coughing up blood, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Thanks to her thick skin, Huahua didn't die immediately. However, her eyes started to lose focus and it seemed that she wouldn't be able to survive. Yun Ruoyan sighed again. She placed her finger on Huahua's forehead and transferred some spiritual energy to her. Huahua coughed twice and her eyes focused once more. Seeing that she could still be saved, Yun Ruoyan took out a life-saving pill and fed it to Huahua. Huahua took a deep breath. In the end, she was still alive. "How are you? Are you all right?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "Pei Pei." Huahua still called out Pei Zio affectionately. Yun Ruoyan knew that she had done quite a bit of harm to him and she felt a little ashamed. Hua Hua had never harmed her. Yun Ruoyan had only used her to get back at Pei Xiao. Yun Ruoyan took out a bag of silver and placed it by Hua Hua's side. Last night was just a wet dream. Forget it. If you want to live, take this money and leave this place. No, I'm not leaving. I want to find my dear Pei. Hua Hua couldn't understand why Pei Xiao, who had been gentle with her for an entire night, would suddenly kick her down the stairs. Just then the tightly shut door suddenly opened, and a dozen or so men and women ran out, all of them disheveled. What happened inside? Yun Ruoyan tugged at one of the girls who was still in a state of shock. Murder, the girl stammered. Who killed? Young Master Pei, he killed my mother. And so many people. As soon as Pei Xiao opened his eyes, he obeyed Yun Ruoyan's orders and swallowed the antidote. As the effects of the soul-stealing pill wore off, he gradually regained consciousness. As he regained consciousness, Pei Xiao was horrified to find a naked, ugly and revolting woman lying next to him. Shocked, Pei Xiao turned over and fell off the bed. Hua Hua was startled awake, and she looked at Pei Xiao seductively with her beady eyes. Pei Xiao, you're awake. Thinking back to the night before, Hua Hua still felt as if she were floating in the clouds. Why are you here? Pei Xiao pointed at Hua Hua, his face full of fear. He looked around. This was the Yichuan brothel, a place he frequented. But he couldn't remember how he had ended up here. More importantly, why was he sleeping on the same bed as this disgusting, ugly woman? What in the world had happened? Have I been here all this time? Hua Hua pouted her thick, swollen lips and smiled shyly. Last night, Pei Xiao, you were very gentle. Pei Xiao's head exploded and a few scattered images flooded into his mind. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Hua Hua, who was lying on the bed. Pei Xiao, what's wrong? Hua Hua didn't understand Pei Xiao's expression, so she propped herself up. The blanket slid off, revealing a large patch of rough black and red skin. Pei Xiao suddenly felt like he was going to go blind. He clutched his face, tears streaming down his cheeks. Pei Xiao, what's wrong with your eyes? Hua Hua grabbed a robe and draped it over herself. She got off the bed and walked to Pei Xiao's side, reaching out to help him up. Get out of my way. Pei Xiao shouted and kicked Hua Hua's chest. This kick contained all of Pei Xiao's spiritual power. Hua Hua only had time to let out a cry of surprise before her fat body flew out the window and out of the VIP room on the second floor. Pei Xiao's memories grew clearer and clearer. He remembered how he had entered the Yichuan brothel, how he had spent the night buying Hua Hua, and what that night had been like. Pei Xiao lay on the floor in pain, his body curled into a ball. His stomach churned. Madame Lin heard the commotion upstairs and pounded her way up to Pei Xiao's room. She knocked on the door. Young Master Pei, are you all right? Madame Lin laughed as she knocked on the door. Last night the commotion in the room had been so loud. Just thinking about Hua Hua's body and voice gave Madame Lin goosebumps. Honestly, she couldn't understand how young Master Pei's taste had changed so much. But he was rich. It was true that the rich were good at causing trouble. Young Master Pei, breakfast has been prepared for you. You and Miss Hua Hua. Before Madame Lin could finish speaking, the door suddenly opened. Pei Xiao stood there, his face ashen. Madame Lin, who was used to reading people's expressions, froze. Young Master Pei, what's wrong? Madame Lin asked. Madame Lin. Gritting his teeth, Pei Xiao looked at Mama Lin and said, Who told you to get that ugly monster with me? Madame Lin was dumbfounded. You bought her with your own money. I bought her myself. Pei Xiao clenched his teeth so hard that they were about to bleed. In his memory he had indeed bought her, but in his memory he seemed to be a completely different person. If I want to buy her, you'll sell her? Pei Xiao's eyes were bloodshot. To him, there was nothing worse than playing with a woman who made him feel so disgusted. Of course. Madame Lin said matter-of-factly. Who doesn't know that our Yihong brothel is a money-squandering establishment? My Madame Lin only cares about money, not people. As long as I have money, I'll even sell myself, let alone Hua Hua. Is that so? Pei Xiao smiled viciously. Then I'll buy your life. With that, Pei Xiao reached out and grabbed Madame Lin's neck. Ah, save. Madame Lin only managed to say 2 words before her neck was squeezed tightly by Pei Xiao. The girl in the room next door heard the commotion and pushed open the door to see Pei Zhou strangling Madame Lin. Madame Lin's eyes were wide open and her mouth was wide open. Her tongue was hanging out. Pei Zhou loosened his grip and Madame Lin fell limply to the ground. She couldn't be more dead. Murder. The girl was so frightened that she screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Her scream was even worse than Hua's. The entire Yichuan brothel was woken up by her scream. The girls, the patrons and the hired thugs all pushed open the doors to see what was going on. The cries of murder, murder, rang out again and again. When the thugs saw that their boss had been killed and that the murderer was still at the scene of the crime, they all pounced on Pei Zhou. Pei Zhou had killed Madame Lin in a fit of rage. He stared blankly at Madame Lin, who was lying on the ground with her eyes rolled back and her tongue hanging out. While Pei Zhou was still in a daze, a few thugs surrounded him and beat him to the ground. Although these thugs didn't have very high cultivations, they were very good at beating people up and they specifically targeted vulnerable areas. Pei Zhou's nose, eyes and abdomen all hurt. Just as one of the thugs was about to kick him in the groin, Pei Zhou suddenly exploded. The blood in his chest surged. With a flip of his hand he took out his family heirloom, the cloud-piercing spear, and didn't hold back at all. In an instant the brothel was dyed red with blood. There was a constant stream of people running out of the Yihong brothel. Not only were they screaming that someone was being murdered, but they were also screaming that they should report this to the authorities. A madman was killing people. Yi Qianying's curiosity was also piqued. A place like the Yichuan brothel would normally be avoided by the ladies of good families. But the more she avoided it, the more curious she became about it. Moreover, given the commotion that had just occurred, she decided to walk over as well. Yun Ruoyan didn't enter the Yichuan brothel. She was only there to watch the show, and the situation had already far exceeded her expectations. As such, it was best to watch from afar. Yun Ruoyan turned to return to the breakfast shop, but Hua had already disappeared. It seemed that she hadn't been foolish enough to take a breather. By this time the Yichuan brothel was surrounded by a crowd of onlookers. Yi Qianying was bumped into by one of the onlookers, and by the time she turned around she had lost track of Yun Ruoyan. She stopped in the middle of the crowd. "What happened?" someone in the crowd asked. "Someone killed Madame Lin," one of the patrons who had rushed out of the Yichuan brothel replied. "Oh, it's that wicked old woman? Who killed her?" "Young Master Pei of the spiritual weapon trade." Yi Qianying immediately perked up her ears as if she had been pricked by a needle. "Why, I'm telling you, there's something fishy going on here." The patron recounted the events of the previous evening. Did he really sleep with Hua? Because of Hua's ugliness, there was no one in the area who didn't know of her. He really slept with her. The patron exclaimed exaggeratedly. And there was quite a commotion last night, from Hua's hoarse voice. The patron made an indescribable expression as he continued. For some reason, young Master Pei went crazy early this morning, strangling Madame Lin to death and killing many of her thugs. Isn't he crazy? He's not crazy. How could he sleep with Hua? When the crowd thought of Hua, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yi Qianying clutched her handkerchief tightly, her heart filled with an indescribable mixture of emotions. Chapter 158. Not long after, the bailiffs who had received the report jogged all the way to the Yichuan brothel, and the onlookers immediately made way for them. As soon as the bailiffs entered the brothel, they were greeted by such a scene. Pei Zhou stood in a pool of blood, his spear in hand. At his feet were the corpses of 7 or 8 thugs, as well as a madam whose eyes were rolled back in her head. The bailiffs didn't dare approach him, instead standing at the foot of the stairs. The head of the bailiffs recognized Pei Zhou. The Pei family had always interacted with officials. From the emperor's relatives to the secretaries of the yamen and the jailers, the Pei family was willing to spend money to rope them in. Who knew when he would be able to use it in the future? Of course he could use it now. "Young Master Pei, what's the matter?" the head of the bailiffs asked from afar. Pei Zhou raised his head to look at the bailiffs, and his cold face slowly revealed a pained expression. I don't know anything. I've been *ket up." The head of the bailiffs was a knowledgeable man, and after hearing Pei Zhou's words, he had a rough idea of what was going on. Young Master Pei, no matter what, please put down your weapon and come with us to the yamen. Pei Zio was only wearing his undergarments and his body was drenched in blood, some from others and some from himself. After the fight, Pei Zio's face was swollen, his hair disheveled and his eyes unfocused. He no longer had the air of a young master. He was carried out of the Ichuan brothel by the bailiffs. As his unfocused gaze swept across the crowd, he suddenly saw a familiar face. It was Xianxia. Their eyes met and there was an indescribable mixture of emotions. "Uncle, another bowl of 8 treasures porridge." Yun Ruoyan called out. She was still sitting at the seat by the door and because there was a good show to watch, her appetite was particularly good. "Little brother, have you found your eldest brother?" The old man asked curiously when he saw his daughter's excitement. My brother, he's not here. We've wronged him." Yun Ruoyan made up a story as she ate her porridge, looking at the gradually dispersing crowd and the figure of a familiar woman. The show had ended but another was about to begin. Yun Wuxia was cultivating in his own residence when he suddenly sneezed. Frowning, he rubbed his nose and ended his cultivation. He hadn't seen Yun Ruoyan in a few days so he decided to head over to her quarters to take a look. Yun Wuxia didn't see Yun Ruoyan when he arrived at her cottage. Yun Ruoyan usually cultivated in the morning and evening, and it was around this time that she would get up to wash up and eat. Something must have happened for him to go out so early today. When Yun Wuxia pressed on, Peony quietly told him that her mistress had left early in the morning, and was dressed in men's clothing. Puzzled, he waited for Yun Ruoyan in the room. When Yun Ruoyan pushed open the window and entered the room, she saw her brother sitting by the table staring at her. "Oh, my brother." Yun Ruoyan patted her chest. "Why did you conceal your aura? You scared me. What were you doing so early in the morning? Why are you dressed like this?" Yun Wuxia asked. "Nothing, just wanted to get some fresh air." Yun Ruoyan turned around and closed the window. It was already autumn and the cold wind would blow in through the window. "Get some fresh air?" Yun Wuxia clearly didn't believe Yun Ruoyan's words. "Oh, I've had enough bird's nest soup so I went out for a change. Then I saw a good show." Yun Ruoyan walked up to her brother and poured herself a cup of hot tea, sipping it slowly. She'd eaten too many steamed buns and it was time for her to quench her thirst. "What show did you see?" Yun Wuxia continued to interrogate her. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but burst out laughing as she recounted Pei Zio's story to her brother in vivid detail. "Brother, do you think young Master Pei will be sentenced to death for murder?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "Ruoyan, did young Master Pei offend you in the past?" Yun Wuxia suddenly asked. "Oh, what's wrong?" Yun Ruoyan's smile immediately vanished. She realized that she was taking pleasure in Pei Zio's misfortune far beyond the scope of a bystander. But she just couldn't help it. "Look at how happy you are. Those who don't know better might think that you have some deep grudge against him." Yun Wuxia exclaimed. Yun Ruoyan thought about it for a moment. She had to hide the grudge from her past life, but she could at least tell her brother about it in this life. As a result, Yun Ruoyan told her brother about how Pei Zio, Xianxia Yun Ruoyao, and Yun Ruoyu had tried to harm her and cousin Lin in the imperial territory. "He really is a despicable person," Yun Wuxiao commented angrily after hearing Yun Ruoyan's account. "Brother, do you think Pei Zio will be severely punished for killing so many people at the emperor's feet?" "No, he won't," Yun Wuxiao replied. "Why?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "According to what you said, he fell into someone else's trap," Yun Wuxiao said. "Ah." Yun Ruoyan looked at her brother in shock. "Fell for someone else's trap? Brother, why do you say that?" Yun Ruoyan was shocked by her brother's observation skills. Just from hearing her story, he could tell that Pei Zio had fallen for someone else's trap. "That's obvious. You said that Hua Hua is so ugly that any normal man would be disgusted by her, but Pei Zio spent a lot of money to buy her first night. This is something worth considering." Yun Wuxiao explained. "He suddenly started killing people in the morning. He must have been mesmerized and couldn't accept spending a night with an ugly woman, so he lost his mind." Yun Wuxiao quickly explained the situation and Yun Ruoyan felt that if he continued she would be exposed as the mastermind behind all this. She was just about to change the topic when Yun Wuxiao asked. "Where's that Hua Hua? You haven't mentioned her for a long time. The madam was beaten to death, so where did she go?" don't know. Yun Ruoyan lowered her head and continued drinking her tea. If Hua Hua ran away, it means there's a conspiracy behind this, Yun Moxiao continued. Even if there's a conspiracy, he still killed someone. How can he not take responsibility for killing someone? Yun Ruoyan said, unconvinced. Although I'm not often in the capital, I've often heard Master mention a few of the major families in the capital. Among them, the Peis have been the fastest to rise in recent years. With money and connections, it wouldn't take much effort to deal with such matters. Moreover, the people Pei Zhou killed were all low-class people, so it was easy to bribe them with some money. Besides, Yun Moxiao turned to Yun Ruoyan. He was accepted into Kongming Academy just like you. Even if he committed a crime, he can't be sentenced to death. Yun Ruoyan knew that it wouldn't be so easy to get rid of Pei Zhou, but his reputation would be tarnished after this incident. Forget it, it's none of my business. Yun Ruoyan smiled. Brother, I'm going to the Slaughtering King's Manor to play with Sister Li Luo today. Why don't you come with me? Li Mo was right. The Slaughtering King's Manor was indeed open to Yun Ruoyan at any time. As soon as Yun Ruoyan dismounted from her horse, the two guards by the door greeted her. Miss Yun, please come in. Yun Ruoyan walked to the door, hands behind her back, and smiled at the two guards. Is His Highness drunk today? Our Highness isn't here, the shorter guard replied. But he told us that no matter what he's doing or not, as long as you're here, we'll welcome you as if you're the mistress of the manor. Yun Moxiao frowned and Yun Ruoyan's face reddened. Then is Miss Li Luo in? Yes, the taller guard replied. Miss Li Luo has just returned from shopping. He should be in the kitchen now. Because there weren't many people in the Slaughtering King's Manor, everyone was familiar with one another. Yun Ruoyan nodded and the two siblings entered the manor one after the other. Yun Moxiao was also surprised by how quiet the manor was. There were even fallen leaves in the corridors and no one was sweeping them away. Moreover, without anyone to lead the way, they didn't even know where to go in such a large manor. Ruoyan, do you know where the kitchen is? Yun Moxiao asked. I don't. Yun Ruoyan shook her head. She had been to the Slaughtering King's Manor twice, slept in one of the guest rooms, had some snacks in the garden at the back, and waited for Li Mo in the drawing room. But Yun Ruoyan had no sense of direction, and she wouldn't be able to find any of these three places. Just then, a middle-aged woman in her 40s walked out from the corridor to the right. She was dressed in a blue cotton robe, and it looked like she was the mother of one of the servants in the manor. Miss Yun, are you Miss Yun? The mother didn't seem at all timid as she greeted Yun Ruoyan. Both Yun Ruoyan and Yun Moxiao were taken aback. In the Yun household, such servants didn't have the right to speak to guests. Even the most upper-class maids had to lower their heads in front of guests, and unless the guest asked to speak to them or the master ordered them to do so, they wouldn't initiate a conversation. However, the mother didn't seem to realize this. She smiled at Yun Ruoyan. Miss Yun, you must be looking for Miss Li Luo? She's brewing some medicine in the kitchen right now. I'll take you there right away. Oh, of course, Yun Ruoyan replied, and the two siblings followed the mother to the kitchen. Sister Li Luo, Yun Ruoyan called out as soon as she saw Li Luo, who was busy brewing medicine in front of the stove. When Li Luo raised her head and saw Yun Ruoyan, she smiled. Miss Yun, I'll be done in a moment. Please don't come in, it's too smoky here. It's all right. Yun Ruoyan walked into the kitchen followed by Yun Moxiao. Li Luo couldn't help but stare blankly at him, surprised to see him all of a sudden. Miss Li Luo, is your brother's injury all right? Yun Moxiao took the initiative to speak up when he saw Li Luo's shocked expression. Oh, much better. Why did you and Miss Yun come together? Li Luo looked at Yun Ruoyan, then at Yun Ruoyan. Let me introduce you. Yun Ruoyan walked up to Yun Moxiao's side. This is my brother. You know his name, right? Li Luo recalled that outside the Yuelu villa, the man in front of her had introduced himself as Yun Moxiao. Only then did Li Luo react. Yun Moxiao, Li Luo called out. Chapter 159. Hero, I didn't expect you to be Miss Yun's brother. Li Luo looked at Yun Moxiao and smiled. That day I had to bring my senior brother back to treat his injuries and left in such a hurry that I forgot to ask where you lived. My senior brother has been talking about it for the past few days, saying that he has no way to repay you for saving his life. It was nothing, Yun Maxiao hurriedly said. Don't take it to heart, Miss Li, and don't call me hero all the time. That's right, calling you hero is too formal, Yun Ruoyan interjected. Young Master Yun, Li Luo smiled and corrected herself. I'm sure my senior brother will be very happy to see you again. Yun Maxiao looked at Li Luo's beautiful face, her gentle smile and the fine sheen of sweat on her forehead. He felt an indescribable sense of beauty. Brother. When Yun Ruoyan saw her brother staring at Li Luo in a daze, she nudged him. Yun Maxiao's smile didn't waver as he shifted his gaze from Li Luo's face to the stove in front of her. How's Brother Duan's injury? I have some top-notch medicine that I'll send to you another day. Thank you, young Master Yun. Li Luo didn't refuse. As she fanned the stove, she continued, Senior brother's external injuries are mostly healed, but he's been in a bad mood ever since he lost an arm. Once the medicine was ready, Li Luo brought a bowl and a pot of medicine to Yun Ruoyan and Yun Maxiao to deliver the medicine to Duan Tianyun. Duan Tianyun lived in a guest room on the eastern side of the Slaughtering King's manor, not far from the kitchen. Before long, the three of them arrived at the garden. But before they could enter the garden, they heard the sound of porcelain shattering, as well as a man cursing angrily. None of them knew what was going on and they hurried into the garden. There were many guest rooms in the garden, but only the one in the middle was open, and the sound had come from within. Li Luo hurried into the room followed by Yun Ruoyan and Yun Maxiao. Senior brother, what are you doing? Li Luo shouted. Yun Ruoyan saw that the room was a mess and a tall one-armed man was standing in the middle of it. He was pulling at the bandages around his broken arm, fresh blood dripping from the wound. Senior brother, stop. Li Luo hurriedly put down the tray and ran towards the man, trying to stop him from harming himself. Your wounds have just healed, what are you doing? Go away, I don't want you to care about me. Duan Tianyun shouted angrily as he shook off Li Luo, continuing to pull at the bandage. You're my senior brother. If I don't care about you, who will? Li Luo was furious, her voice tearing up. Just as Li Luo charged forward again, Duan Tianyun slapped her across the face. Why didn't you tell me that you were a maid in the Slaughtering King's manor? Duan Tianyun roared at Li Luo. Have you forgotten how our parents and master died? You actually became a slave to your enemy. Today I will teach you a lesson on behalf of master. Duan Tianyun raised his palm again, but this time his palm didn't land. Yun Maxiao had grabbed Duan Tianyun's wrist tightly. Who are you? Frem. Duan Tianyun roared at Yun Maxiao, but when he saw Yun Maxiao's face he froze. Although Duan Tianyun had been severely injured that day in the dueling arena, he still remembered his benefactor's face. It's you. Yes, it's me. Yun Maxiao stared at Duan Tianyun, his gaze sharp. Miss Li went to great lengths to save you. No matter what happened, you shouldn't have raised a hand against her. AI. Duan Tianyun sighed heavily under Yun Maxiao's intense gaze, finally lowering his raised hand. There was a brief silence in the room. The side of Li Luo's face that had been slapped quickly swelled up. She lowered her head and walked to the wooden table by the door, pouring out a bowl of medicine from the flask and placing it in front of Duan Tianyun. Senior brother, drink your medicine, Li Luo said. Duan Tianyun didn't look at her. I won't drink the Slaughtering King's manor's medicine anymore. He turned his head to look at Li Luo's swollen face and said apologetically, I shouldn't have hit you, it's all my fault. I didn't protect you well enough and now you're in this situation. Duan Tianyun stood up. Luo? Let's leave the Slaughtering King's manor now. Li Luo shook her head. Senior brother, I'm not leaving. You say that again. Duan Tianyun pointed at Li Luo in disbelief. Li Luo looked at Duan Tianyun with a pained expression. Senior brother, I can't leave the Slaughtering King's manor. I've signed a contract with the Slaughtering King, and I'm now a servant of the Slaughtering King's manor. Duan Tianyun pointed at Li Luo, his entire body trembling. Fine, if you're not leaving then I'll leave. Duan Tianyun was about to leave when Yun Maxiao blocked his path. Good man. Duan Tianyun looked at Yun Maxiao. I'll repay you for saving my life in the future, but please don't stop me today. As a beastkin I can't live under the same roof as my enemy. Brother Duan, you've misunderstood, Yun Maxiao began. I'm not trying to stop you, Brother Duan, but your wound is dripping blood non-stop, and I'm afraid you'll faint on the streets before long. Coincidentally, 2 beastkin friends of mine are staying at my grandfather's manor as well. If you don't mind, why don't you stay there for a while? Duan Tianyun looked at Yun Maxiao, then at his own wound and sighed, I'll do as you say. Yun Maxiao looked at Li Luo and she looked back at him, her eyes full of gratitude. Yun Maxiao didn't say anything, only nodding at her. Yun Maxiao brought Duan Tianyun directly to the Lin Manor, but Yun Ruoyan was in no hurry to leave. In Li Luo's room, Yun Ruoyan wiped her swollen face with cold water. Your senior brother sure is ruthless. It's my fault. It's only right that senior brother hit me, Li Luo said calmly. Yun Ruoyan paused and glanced at Li Luo. Sister Li Luo, I can tell that your senior brother is a beastkin, but why can't I tell that you're one? Are you a beastkin? Beastkin were known for their extraordinarily bright eyes. The Zhou siblings were like that, and so was Duan Tianyun. However, Li Luo's eyes were no different from a normal human's. As a result, both Yun Ruoyan and Yun Maxiao thought that she was a human, but Duan Tianyun's attitude today made it clear that Li Luo was a beastkin just like him. Are you referring to my eyes? Li Luo didn't try to hide the truth. It's because His Highness taught me how to conceal the light in my eyes. Li Luo looked at Yun Ruoyan, and as their eyes met, Li Luo's eyes began to change. She had a pair of big lively eyes. Her black pupils were even darker and her white pupils were even whiter. In the blink of an eye, her eyes had transformed into beastkin eyes, bright and wild. You really are a beastkin. Yun Ruoyan was a little disappointed. Yun Maxiao liked Li Luo, but how could the future head of the Yun family marry a lowly beastkin? This was a big problem. Miss Yun, are you looking down on me? As a beastkin, isn't it very lowly of me to be the slave of my enemy? When Li Luo heard Yun Ruoyan's disappointed tone, she misunderstood that Yun Ruoyan was targeting her. No. Yun Ruoyan hurriedly waved her hands. Sister Li Luo, I'm not looking down on you really. Yun Ruoyan didn't know how to explain herself. After all, she couldn't tell Li Luo that it was because her brother had taken a liking to her, but because she was a beastkin, their relationship might end before it had even begun. Actually, His Highness isn't as scary as everyone thinks, Li Luo murmured. Li Luo lowered her head and said softly, he bought me at a slave auction. Yun Ruoyan looked at Li Luo with interest, waiting for her to continue. Li Luo slowly recounted the events of the past to Yun Ruoyan. Li Luo told Yun Ruoyan how she had been poisoned with a paralyzing powder, how she had been sold in a cage, and how Li Mo had saved her. When she found out that Li Mo was the slaughtering king, she had been prepared to perish together with him. However, she hadn't been humiliated or tortured as she had imagined. Li Mo had cured her of the paralyzing powder, healed her wounds, and given her some money before allowing her to leave on her own accord. However, Li Luo didn't accept Li Mo's kindness. Instead, she hid and waited for an opportunity to assassinate Li Mo. I tried to assassinate His Highness 8 times, but I was caught every time, Li Luo laughed self-deprecatingly. But His Highness has never made things difficult for me. He's let me go time and time again. Every time His Highness released me, my hatred for him lessened a little, but my desire to kill him never lessened. It was as if I were competing with myself. Finally, on the last attempt, I found an opportunity. Li Luo said that she had followed Li Mo from the Yu Kingdom to the Li Kingdom. Once she had followed Li Mo into the Minghuang Mountain, where there was a cave within the imperial territory. Li Luo followed Li Mo to the entrance of the cave. When she saw him enter, she wanted to follow. However, as soon as she took a step into the cave, a powerful aura forced her back. Frightened, she hid in a corner and waited for Li Mo to come out. Li Luo waited from night until the morning of the second day, when Li Mo finally walked out of the room heavily injured. Li Luo realized that this was a good opportunity for revenge, and she charged at Li Mo without hesitation. Although Li Luo's cultivation wasn't high, Li Mo's injuries were so severe that he couldn't use his spiritual energy. As a result, the sounds of their fight attracted the attention of the guards, who surrounded them and attacked them. What Li Luo hadn't expected was that Li Mo would protect her. Not only did he take a blow for her, but he even managed to escape with her. From then on, I made up my mind to follow His Highness. Even if I had to be his little servant, I would still be willing. Oh, is that so? Yun Ruoyan quietly listened to Li Luo's story. Apart from sighing, she also felt a little uncomfortable, which she didn't quite understand. After a moment of silence, Yun Ruoyan suddenly stood up from her chair. Do you have any medicine for swelling? Your face needs some medication or it won't go away so quickly. Yes, there's a white porcelain bottle on the table in the inner room, Li Luo replied. Without another word, Yun Ruoyan entered the inner room to look for the medicine. Just as she was about to leave with the bottle, she heard a familiar male voice from outside. Did he hit you? Yes. Yun Ruoyan walked out. She saw Li Luo and Li Mo standing facing each other, but Li Mo's hand was on Li Luo's cheek. Why are you here? Li Mo was surprised to see Yun Ruoyan. That's right, I came at the wrong time. Yun Ruoyan smiled coldly. She placed the white porcelain bottle on the table and walked out of the room. Chapter 160. Your Highness, Miss Yun must have misunderstood. Li Luo exclaimed anxiously. Li Mo's hand was still on Li Luo's face. When he removed it, Li Luo's face was no longer red and swollen. Thank you, Your Highness. Li Luo bowed. But Miss Yun, Li Mo raised a hand to interrupt Li Luo. He took out a scroll from his sleeve and handed it to Li Luo. Prepare the herbs according to this list. Sunan will come to collect them in 2 days. Yes, Your Highness. Li Luo took the list and walked out of the room. As Li Mo walked out of Li Luo's room, Yun Ruoyan's expression surfaced in his mind. Was she angry because he'd placed his hand on another woman's face? That must be jealousy. Li Mo's lips curled up in a smile. He found Yun Ruoyan's jealous expression adorable. Yun Ruoyan quickly walked out of Li Luo's garden, her heart filled with an inexplicable anger that made her head hurt. She went out of the garden, wandered aimlessly and miserably lost her way. Why am I so unlucky today? Yun Ruoyan thought gloomily as she stood on an unfamiliar path. Although it was already autumn, her surroundings were still lush and lush. The trees and flowers looked as if no one had ever taken care of them, and they grew in a messy yet exuberant manner. There were also weeds growing out from the cracks in the stone path beneath her feet, almost covering the entire stone path. This didn't look like a prince's manor at all. If not for the fact that there was still some human presence, it would have looked no different from an abandoned garden. What an unlucky day. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but shout as she stomped on the stone path. What's the matter? Are you angry at me? Li Mo's voice suddenly rang out from behind Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan stopped stomping her feet, straightened her back and continued walking along the stone path. She didn't care which direction she was heading in. Where are you going? Li Mo followed her quickly. The path was too narrow for 2 people to walk side by side, so he followed a step behind Yun Ruoyan. This path leads to the back of the mountain. Do you want to go hunting or sightseeing? Li Mo chattered away. I'd be happy to accompany you, but it's this season, and the plants on the back mountain are beginning to wilt. Don't look back, Yun Ruoyan repeated to herself as she walked briskly. The little animals have also eaten their fill and are hiding in their nests. Li Mo continued to persuade his mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Yun Ruoyan continued forward. Sigh. Li Mo sighed. There won't be any good scenery or prey to catch. I'm afraid she'll be disappointed. Did I say anything about going to the back mountain? Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but turn to Li Mo. No. Li Mo shook his head and smiled. Where is going? Relying on the self-restraint she'd cultivated over 2 lifetimes, Yun Ruoyan finally managed to suppress the raging blood in her heart. I want to leave this place. Oh you should have said so earlier. Li Mo stepped forward and hugged Yun Ruoyan's waist. What are you doing? Yun Ruoyan raised a hand to push him away, but her body suddenly leapt into the air. Li Mo was already riding on his sword energy. Why are you riding on your sword again? Yun Ruoyan didn't want Li Mo to get too close to her, but she had to rely on him to maintain her balance. Put me down at once. She cried in exasperation and vexation. Li Mo was in a good mood. Ever since he'd met Yun Ruoyan, he'd never seen her throw a tantrum like this. You're so jealous. Li Mo leaned forward and frowned. Are you jealous? Did I eat cool? Am I jealous? Are you joking? Why would I be jealous? Yun Ruoyan denied loudly, having been exposed by Li Mo. The more Yun Ruoyan denied it, the more guilty she felt and the more jealous she would be. Based on Li Mo's understanding of Yun Ruoyan, if he continued teasing her, she would definitely explode. I was treating Li Luo's wound, Li Mo explained seriously. What does it have to do with me? This is the first time I've seen someone treat an injury like that. Li Mo smiled and didn't explain further. Instead, he reached out and placed his palm on Yun Ruoyan's cheek. Ouch. The sudden touch brought with it a bone-piercing chill, causing Yun Ruoyan to shiver involuntarily. Li Mo immediately moved his hand away. Why's your hand so cold? It's even colder than ice. Yun Ruoyan rubbed her numb face. Apart from fire-attuned spiritual energy, there's also water-attuned spiritual energy, which can be converted into ice, Li Mo explained. That's amazing. Yun Ruoyan instantly forgot that she was still angry. She grabbed Li Mo's hand and had him release his ice-attuned spiritual energy once more. Naturally, Li Mo satisfied Yun Ruoyan's request. Yun Ruoyan asked if she could condense ice-attuned spiritual energy as well. Li Mo told her that it required talent, and he didn't know if Yun Ruoyan would be able to do so before she started cultivating. However, fire and ice were incompatible, and one couldn't cultivate both at the same time. Otherwise, it would be easy for one's cultivation to go berserk. Yun Ruoyan found this strange. As far as she knew, Li Mo was a very skilled pill master. Didn't he have both fire and ice at the same time? Yun Ruoyan directly asked him this question. I didn't say that I cultivated both elements at the same time, Li Mo replied. If you want to have both elements at the same time, you'll have to cultivate one to the highest level, because if you're strong enough to suppress the other, you won't go berserk. Oh, I see. Yun Ruoyan suddenly understood. You're saying that if I want to have ice-attuned spiritual energy, I'll have to cultivate my fire-attuned spiritual energy to the violet level first. You're a promising student, Li Mo praised. So you're not angry anymore? Who says I'm angry? Yun Ruoyan would never admit that she was angry or jealous. Didn't you say that you didn't get your spiritual energy for nothing? Besides, I brought the medicine with me. You're just trying to take advantage of Sister Li Luo. I'm trying to take advantage of her. This was the first time Li Mo had heard someone say such a thing to him, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm using spiritual energy to treat Li Luo's wounds because it's faster, Li Mo explained patiently. I have something for her to do, and I can't just let her go out with a swollen face, can I? What's so urgent? Yun Ruoyan asked casually. But as soon as she spoke, she knew that she'd crossed the line. She thought that Li Mo wouldn't respond, but he did. I'm looking for herbs to treat her wounds. Many of the beastkin we saved last time were injured, and we're in urgent need of herbs. Oh, is that so? Yun Ruoyan's heart sank as she thought of the beastkin who had been persecuted. You're not angry now, are you? I'm really not, Yun Ruoyan replied seriously. Alright or you're not. Li Mo smiled. Rumble. Suddenly Yun Ruoyan's stomach rumbled in protest. She was a little embarrassed. She'd only had a plate of steamed dumplings, 2 deep-fried dough sticks, and 2 bowls of 8 treasure porridge that morning, so why was she so hungry again? She was lucky that she'd been born into a noble family. If she'd been born into a poor family, she would surely have starved to death. Not only are you angry, but you also have a big stomach, Li Mo teased. Li Mo teased, then directed the sword to find a secluded spot to land before taking Yun Ruoyan to eat. Let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer it. Yun Ruoyan walked up to Li Mo's side. Sure, ask away. Why didn't you tell Duan Tianyun and Zhui Feng that you'd saved so many beastkin? Perhaps you could have resolved their hatred for you. Yun Ruoyan turned to Li Mo. Even if I couldn't resolve their hatred, I could at least alleviate it a little. Because it's a secret I can't tell. Li Mo also turned to look at Yun Ruoyan, his gaze deep. Do you have a secret you can't divulge even to your closest kin? Yun Ruoyan froze. A secret she couldn't divulge? Of course she did, and not just one. Besides, even if I told them that I'd saved so many beastkin, they might not appreciate it, Li Mo replied helplessly. Li Mo said somewhat helplessly, perhaps they might even suspect my motives and be even more wary of me. She hadn't thought of this possibility before, but when she thought about it, it was quite possible. If an executioner who'd once slaughtered beastkin were to suddenly show mercy and save them, the beastkin surely wouldn't appreciate it. Liemo brought Yun Ruian to the restaurant they'd been to before. Liemo remembered that Yun Ruian loved the braised pork there. "And a lion's head, please," Yun Ruian instructed the waiter. "Yes, sir." The waiter called out as he went downstairs. "Braised pork ribs, carp in vinegar sauce, braised pork and a lion's head." His voice traveled all the way to the first floor, and Yun Ruian felt a little embarrassed just listening to it. Others might have thought that this was a portion for 2 people, but Yun Ruian knew that Liemo wouldn't eat a single bite. She'd finished all of it for herself. "I'm glad that you have such a good appetite, Ruian." Liemo smiled. "What's there to be glad about?" Yun Ruian turned her gaze to the scenery outside the window. "Are you really not going to eat it all? Last time I saw you finish half a bowl of lotus seed soup." "I can eat some vegetarian food, but I can't eat any meat at all," Liemo replied. "After abstaining from eating, your body won't produce any foul air and meat won't be easy to digest." "That's too boring," Yun Ruian replied. "Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and eating is one of the most important. That's how important eating is." Yun Ruian decided that no matter how strong she became in the future, she would never abstain from eating. Just as Yun Ruian was contemplating, a slender, monkey-like figure suddenly appeared in her field of vision. The figure darted through the crowd, agile and nimble, and someone was chasing after him. As he chased, he shouted, "Catch the thief! Catch the thief in front of me!" Chapter 161. Seeing that Yun Ruian was looking out the window, Liemo followed her gaze. Seeing that there were only people chasing after the thief, he didn't pay much attention. Yun Ruian felt that the skinny monkey-like figure was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't recall where she had seen him before. However, she had some impression of the middle-aged man chasing after the skinny monkey-like figure. Wang Gang, one of Wang Meng's servants. Since he had seen Wang Gang, it was likely that his master was nearby as well. Yun Ruian scanned the crowd, but she didn't see any trace of Wang Meng. What are you looking at?" Liemo asked curiously. Yun Ruian was still staring out the window, and Liemo saw that both the thief and his pursuer had disappeared. "Nothing." Yun Ruian turned back to Liemo and smiled. After a while, the dishes began to arrive on the table. Yun Ruian picked up her chopsticks and began to eat without greeting Liemo. Liemo took out a silver flask and watched Yun Ruian devour the food as he slowly tasted the wine he had brought. Just then a man's angry voice came from the stairs. "Damn it, he ran so fast that he left me behind. Young master, should we report this to the authorities? If you can't even catch up to him, what's the point?" The speaker was a youth, his tone sinister rather than angry. "I've traveled the 4 kingdoms and this is the first time a thief has managed to steal something from me." "Interesting. Young master, are you saying that we're just going to let it go?" Just as they were entering the restaurant, a skinny monkey-like man suddenly ran out from the side and bumped into Wang Meng. Wang Meng immediately realized that he had lost a jade pendant by his waist. The skinny monkey-like man was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye he had disappeared into the crowd. Wang Gang immediately chased after him, but he still managed to escape. "We'll talk about it after dinner," the youth replied coolly. The young man said calmly, but the corners of his mouth were curled up in a cold smile. Trying to take advantage of him was really courting death. Yun Ruian's seat was facing the stairs, and she was reaching out for a piece of braised pork with her chopsticks. When she heard the voice, she couldn't help but stop. Enemies are bound to meet. Sensing Liemo's questioning gaze, she picked up the piece of translucent braised pork. Wang Meng and Wang Gang sat at the table behind Yun Ruian, sipping their tea as they waited for their meal. Wang Gang didn't know if he was tired or angry, but he was breathing heavily. He slammed the table and said, "Don't let me catch that son of a bitch or I'll break his neck." Wang Meng frowned, raising his head to look at Wang Gang. His gaze inadvertently landed on Liemo, who was seated at the next table. Liemo's hair was black and he was wearing a black robe. He held a small silver pot in his hand and poured himself a drink. Wang Meng wanted to probe Li Mo's cultivation, but he found that Li Mo's aura was indiscernible. If he deliberately concealed his cultivation, he wouldn't be able to sense the difference in his aura. If one's cultivation was weaker than his, he would be able to sense the range of their cultivation through their aura. If it was a little higher than him, he would be able to sense it. However, Li Mo's indiscernible aura indicated that this person's cultivation was much higher than his. This was the kind of person that Wang Meng wanted to befriend, learn from, and eventually surpass. Wang Meng didn't recognize Yun Ruoyan, but his attention was drawn to Li Mo. Actually, Li Mo and Wang Meng had crossed paths back at the auction house, but neither of them had ever seen the other. As a result, even now they were strangers. What grudge do you have against him? Li Mo asked Yun Ruoyan, sensing Wang Meng's gaze on him. Yun Ruoyan ate a piece of braised pork, then picked up a piece of fish with her chopsticks. She didn't even raise her head as she replied, "His name is Wang Meng and he's a famous pill-making genius from the Yu royal family. 2 years from now I'll have a pill-making competition with him." So he's Wang Meng. Li Mo repeated the name in his heart. He was quite familiar with it. While Li Mo was touring the Yu kingdom, he had heard more than once that Wang Meng was a pill-making genius rarely seen on the Qinyuan continent in centuries. Moreover, the pill-making world of the Li kingdom had become somewhat unstable due to Wang Meng's numerous challenges. When Li Mo tested Wang Meng with his spiritual energy, he couldn't help but frown. At such a young age, Wang Meng had already become a 6th-rank pill master. According to Li Mo's senses, Yun Ruoyan was currently a 4th-rank pill master, 2 ranks behind Wang Meng. Although 2 ranks didn't seem like much, it was incredibly difficult to catch up. Not to mention the fact that the higher one went, the harder it would be to cultivate. The problem was that while you were improving, others were also improving. If you wanted to surpass others, you had to improve faster than others. Although Yun Ruoyan's talent for pill-making wasn't bad, it wasn't much better than Wang Meng's. It seemed like he'd have to help him out, Li Mo thought. Wang Meng wanted to befriend Li Mo, but he didn't approach him rashly. He had interacted with quite a few people during his travels, and he knew that an expert like Li Mo didn't like to be disturbed, not to mention that he had a woman by his side. As a result, when the waiter brought out Wang Meng's food and wine, Wang Meng took out a flask of fine wine that he had been saving for a long time to honor his father and had the waiter bring it over to Li Mo. The waiter walked up to Li Mo with a smile and handed him the reddish-brown flask. "Young master, this is the young master's treat. Please accept it." Yun Ruoyan frowned at the flask of wine in the waiter's hands, then shifted her gaze from the flask to Li Mo's face. The waiter was holding the silver that Wang Meng had given him as a reward, and he was also looking at Li Mo. "Put it down," Li Mo said coolly. "All right." The waiter placed the flask on the table and turned to leave. Yun Ruoyan tilted her head and looked at Li Mo. "Did he recognize you?" There weren't many people on the Qinyuan continent who knew Li Mo, but there weren't that few either. However, anyone with even the slightest bit of knowledge knew that the slaughtering king's black hair was unbound, and he wore an ink-black robe that hung loosely to the ground. There really weren't many people on the Qinyuan continent who fit this description. Wang Meng's eyes lit up as he gulped down a cup of wine. Just then Li Mo, who had been sipping his wine, suddenly raised his head and raised his cup at Wang Meng. Overjoyed, Wang Meng hurriedly raised his cup in return, then emptied it before Li Mo could. Wang Meng placed his empty cup on the table and stood up without hesitation, walking toward Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan's table. "My name is Wang Meng of the Yu Kingdom." Wang Meng cupped his fists toward Li Mo. "May I know your name, young master?" "My name is Li Mo," Li Mo replied coolly. Li Mo. Wang Meng could barely contain his excitement. "So you're the slaughtering king. It's my honor to be able to meet you here." "You're quite lucky today, your highness." At this time, Li Mo revealed a faint smile. He looked at Yun Ruoyan and said, "Not only did you see this prince, you also saw this prince's little consort. This kind of luck is not something that everyone can have." Wang Meng stared blankly at Li Mo's words. When he turned to look at the person sitting across from him, he was even more shocked. "It's you." Wang Meng blurted out. "Miss Yun, you're the slaughtering king's consort?" Wang Meng was curious. It was rumored that the slaughtering king wasn't interested in women, and although he had long since passed the age of marriage, he was still single. Why would there suddenly be a consort? Coincidentally, this consort was Yun Ruoyan, whom he had a duel with. Wait. Wang Meng suddenly thought back to that day at the Lin Manor. Didn't Yun Ruoyan say that she wasn't of marriageable age yet? Wang Meng bowed slightly toward Yun Ruoyan. Miss Yun, you look so young, but I didn't expect you to be the Slaughtering King's wife. I didn't know that you were of such high status, or I wouldn't have dared to be so rude back at the Lin Manor. Wang Meng bowed to Li Mo and said with a vexed expression, previously at the Lin family I wanted to challenge Master Lin for guidance, but the consort accepted my challenge on his behalf as his last disciple. Please forgive me for my disrespect, Your Highness. Although Wang Meng had apologized to Li Mo, his tone suggested that he didn't want to cancel the duel. Li Mo glanced at Wang Meng coolly, but before he could speak, Yun Ruoyan's voice rang out. I'm not the Slaughtering King's consort yet. I'm only engaged to the Slaughtering King, and my agreement with you will continue as scheduled. Regardless of whether it was the Emperor's decree of marriage at the flower viewing party or Li Mo's confirmation to Yun Lan at the Lin Manor, the engagement between the two of them had been verbal. There had been no actual betrothal gift, nor had it been announced to the world. Yun Ruoyan really didn't dare bear the title of the Slaughtering King's consort. Moreover, the fact that she had accepted the duel as Lin Zainan's last disciple was well known throughout the pill-making world. If she were to use Li Mo's authority to force Wang Meng to cancel the duel, it would undoubtedly damage Lin Zainan's reputation. As a result, she had to accept the duel. Wang Meng looked at Li Mo awkwardly. What do you think, Slaughtering King? Li Mo poured the wine with a calm expression. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. He said lightly, Little Wang Fei's intentions are my intentions. I will definitely personally watch the battles at the Alchemy arena. Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan ignored Wang Meng. After standing awkwardly by their side for a while, he bowed and took his leave. Wait, Li Mo called out just as Wang Meng was about to leave. Wang Meng hurriedly turned back. Your Highness, is there anything else? Li Mo glanced at him. This wine is good, but it's not my cup of tea. Take it back. Wang Meng awkwardly picked up the flask. As he turned around, a barely discernible trace of malice appeared in his eyes. He returned to his seat and continued eating. Although his expression didn't change, the food in his mouth tasted like wax. Chapter 162. After eating her fill, Yun Ruoyan no longer had the mood to enjoy the view of the streets after dinner, and she left with Li Mo, young master. Wang Gang craned his neck and whispered, Is that really the legendary Slaughtering King? Although Wang Gang didn't follow Wang Meng to join in the fun, he heard the conversation between the three. Rumor has it that the Slaughtering King is cruel and bloodthirsty, but that doesn't seem like it to me. In Wang Gang's imagination, the Slaughtering King should be as burly as a small mountain, with an aura that could shake mountains and rivers. He should be the kind of man who ate large chunks of meat and drank large mouthfuls of wine, and exuded a murderous aura. The Slaughtering King that he had seen today, however, was dressed in a long black robe and holding an exquisite silver flask in his hand as he carefully tasted his wine. He had the air of a frail scholar. Heh! Wang Meng sneered and said slowly in a soft voice, Even a demon who kills without blinking an eye has to wear a good-looking human skin in front of people, right? Although Wang Gang wasn't a quick-witted person, he knew Wang Meng's temper after following him for so long. From his tone and expression, Wang Meng knew that his young master was unhappy. Who would have thought that that despicable girl was actually the Slaughtering King's consort? Wang Gang said angrily. Back at the Lin Manor, Yun Ruoyan had burned him with spiritual fire, and he still hadn't forgotten about it. But now it seemed that revenge would be impossible. Wang Gang looked at his young master in confusion. Since you already know about the relationship between that girl and the Slaughtering King, why didn't you just cancel the duel? At that time, young master, it won't be good if you win or lose. Won't it be even more difficult? What do you know? Wang Gang said coldly. Who do you think the Slaughtering King is? How many people on the Qinyuan continent were worthy of his attention? If I were to take the initiative to cancel the duel out of fear of his identity, even if I were to temporarily go along with the Slaughtering King's wishes, he would definitely look down on me. I've done the exact opposite. At least the Slaughtering King remembers me now. Wang Meng was not only a genius in alchemy, but he had also been doing business since he was young. Furthermore, he had received the teachings of his father, the head of the Wang clan, and was fond of studying people's minds. In short, he was a very powerful person. Wang Meng picked up the flask of wine that Li Mo had opened but had only taken a sip from, poured himself a cup, put it under his nose and downed it in one gulp. Over 100 years of aging, it was mellow and refreshing. Is there still no news from the people you sent to investigate my second brother's whereabouts? Wang Meng asked. Wang Gang smelled the aroma of the wine and swallowed his saliva. When he heard his master's question, he quickly replied, "Not yet, this is already the third time. I'm afraid that second young master is in danger this time." Wang Meng frowned. He had traveled to the Qin kingdom and had wanted to stay there for a few more days, but he had suddenly received news from his father that his second brother, Wang Kuang, had gone missing in the imperial territory. Wang Meng's father ordered Wang Meng to immediately go to the Li kingdom to find Wang Kuang's whereabouts. He told Wang Meng that he wanted to see Wang Kuang, dead or alive. The eldest daughter of the Jin family, as well as a few other scions of the other families, have also gone missing. According to our reports, they entered the imperial territory together with second young master. I'm afraid that they encountered some powerful magical beasts there. Although Wang Gang had never been to the imperial territory, he had heard that the beasts there were thousands of times more ferocious than those on the outside, and that some of them were even more ferocious than those on the outside. Wang Meng had never been to the imperial territory. Because of his exceptional talent in pill-making from a young age, he had been invited to Kongming Academy at the age of 10. However, his father had turned him down on the grounds that he was too young. Instead, he had hired a reputable pill master to teach him, and after he came of age he had been allowed to travel the world to broaden his horizons. Wang Meng liked this style of learning, so he didn't have much of an interest in Kongming Academy, a place that everyone yearned for. His younger brother, on the other hand, was different. Wang Kuang wasn't particularly talented, but he had cultivated diligently with the goal of entering Kongming Academy. By the time he had entered the imperial territory, he had already become a 6th-rank blade master. According to their father, it wouldn't be a problem for him to pass the trial with such a level of cultivation. However, Wang Kuang had gone missing and his body was nowhere to be found. If he had encountered a horde of magical beasts on his own, that would make sense. The problem was that Wang Kuang wasn't the only one who had gone missing. Wang Meng didn't know the others, but he was familiar with the eldest daughter of the Jin family, Jin Fei. Her cultivation was quite high among her peers. Even if they had encountered a horde of magical beasts, there was no way they would have been completely wiped out. Wang Meng had a feeling that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Continue investigating, Wang Meng instructed. Investigate everyone Wang Kuang came into contact with before and after entering the mystic realm. Yes, young master, Wang Gang replied. After the master and servant finished their meal, they left the restaurant. Wang Meng lifted his foot and walked towards the east. Young master, where are you going? Wang Gang followed behind him. The inn is to the west. Wang Gang's stupidity sometimes left Wang Meng speechless, but despite his stupidity he was loyal. Wang Meng's father had once told him that an intelligent master didn't need an overly intelligent servant, but rather a loyal and obedient one. Don't ask so many questions, just follow me, Wang Meng said without turning his head. Yes, young master, Wang Gang replied. Clearly he was that kind of loyal and obedient servant. As Wang Meng walked, he took out another piece of jade from his sleeve pocket. This piece of jade was yellow in color and didn't look special. It didn't look like something valuable. However, as Wang Meng held it in his hand, he could clearly sense the location of another jade pendant that was identical to this one. It was right in front of him to the east. After greeting Lin Zainan, Yun Mo Xiao brought Duan Tianyun to the bamboo garden to have Lin Qingchen treat his wound. Although Duan Tianyun's acupoints had been sealed, the wound was still too large. Blood was still slowly seeping out of Duan Tianyun's arm, staining the rest of the bandages red. At this moment, Lin Qingchen was helping him bandage his wound, which had been torn off at the shoulder joint. Earlier, Li Luo had treated his wound in the slaughtering king's manner, cutting away the torn tendons and torn flesh, revealing the ghastly white bones beneath. Lin Xianxia had been helping by the side, but when Lin Qingchen removed the blood-stained bandages, she couldn't take it anymore and ran out. Now it was Zhou Lin who was helping. Lin, give me that red porcelain bottle. Lin Qingchen tossed the bandages to the side and extended her hand to Zhou Lin. Zhou Lin, immediately handed the bottle to Lin Qingchen, who removed the stopper and sprinkled the medicinal powder on the wound. Your wound has been treated and disinfected well, so I won't have to disinfect it again, Lin Qingchen told Duan Tianyun as she sprinkled the medicinal powder. Lin Qingchen said to Duan Tianyun as she sprinkled some medicinal powder on his wound. This time I'll bandage your wound properly. Don't pull it off again. Before treating Duan Tianyun's injuries, Lin Qingchen had asked Yun Moxiao about it, and Yun Moxiao had explained the situation to her. As a physician, Lin Qingchen didn't like patients who threw their own bodies in a fit of pique. No matter how angry they were, they couldn't just pull the bandages off their wounds. I won't, Physician Lin. Duan Tianyun turned his head and squeezed out a smile. His face was covered in sweat from the pain. If you can't take it anymore, I'll give you some anesthesia. Don't force yourself, Lin Qingchen said, glancing at Duan Tianyun. There's no need. Duan Tianyun looked at his ghastly wound. I feel like I'm dead after being anesthetized. I don't like it. Moreover, he wanted to remember this pain to remind himself at all times that he should hate the pain. Lin Qingchen stopped talking and focused on bandaging his wound. After Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo left the restaurant, Li Mo sent Yun Ruoyan to the Lin family's gates before leaving. Li Mo wanted to pay a visit to Lin Zainan, but there were 3 members of the Lin family who hated him to the core, so it was best that he didn't show himself. When Yun Ruoyan entered the bamboo gardens, she saw Lin Qingxue squatting outside, her face pale. While Zhou Yifeng was injured, Zhou Lin had to take care of her brother, and neither of them could go to the bamboo gardens to tend to the magical beasts. Strictly speaking, Lin Qingxue's injury had something to do with Zhou Yifeng, so Lin Qingchen had used this opportunity to goad her into going to the bamboo gardens to tend to the magical beasts. Because of her guilt, Lin Qingxue had no choice but to agree. As a result, she was no longer as afraid of the bamboo gardens as she was before. Qingxue, what's wrong? Yun Ruoyan walked over and asked. Lin Qingxue's face was pale as she pointed to the room. Sister's treating an uncle and he's quite frightening. Yun Ruoyan walked into the room and saw Yun Moxiao and Zhou Yifeng sitting by the side. Lin Qingchen was treating Duan Tianyun's injuries, and Zhou Lin was assisting her. Miss Yun, Duan Tianyun greeted Yun Ruoyan as soon as he saw her. Yun Ruoyan nodded in return, and after asking Lin Qingchen about her injuries, she turned to Yun Moxiao and Zhou Yifeng. Ever since Yun Ruoyan had entered the room, Zhou Yifeng had been a little uneasy. Yun Ruoyan didn't have many friends and she treasured them all the more because she had been through life and death with them. She didn't want to lose Zhou Yifeng just like that. Zhou Yifeng, are you feeling better? Yun Ruoyan took the initiative to break the awkward silence. Much better. Zhou Yifeng knew that he couldn't blame Yun Ruoyan for anything, and she didn't owe him anything. However, there were some emotions that he couldn't quite understand that kept circling around his heart, causing him to feel uneasy. As soon as he saw Yun Ruoyan, this feeling only intensified. You'll be entering the academy soon and after that you'll have to recuperate, Yun Ruoyan said worriedly. I know, I'll be fine. Zhou Yifeng finally forced a smile onto his face. There was a pawn shop to the east of the restaurant, and there was only one customer in the shop. What did you say? Only worth 5 silver? The skinny man leaned on the counter of the pawn shop, his slender neck almost poking through the small window. The pawn shop had a lot of valuables, and in order to ensure safety, the counter was separated from the main hall by a sturdy wooden partition. There were only a few small windows at the front of the counter for customers to trade with each other. Master Gua, I grew up in the capital as well, so don't try to scam me, the skinny man yelled at the counter. Only worth 5 silver. If you don't believe me, you can try elsewhere. The shopkeeper didn't waste any more time, and directly handed the yellow jade pendant out of the window. 5 silver isn't even enough for me to drink the wind. The skinny man snatched the jade pendant and turned to leave the pawn shop. This skinny man was none other than Gui Yu, the man who had done something indecent to Jin Fei in the imperial territory. Chapter 163. What if * King Tiger getting bullied by dogs? Dou Yao walked out of the pawn shop and wandered on the street, still holding the jade pendant he stole from Wang Meng. He muttered as he walked, that shouldn't be the case. That guy looks like a young master from a rich family. Why is his jade pendant only worth 5 silver? After getting the jade pendant, Dou Yao didn't even have time to take a good look at it before he rushed into the pawn shop and asked for 1,000 taels of silver. According to his experience, a jade pendant that could be hung on the waist of a rich kid must not be an ordinary item, and he was chased all the way down the street. But when Dou Yao took a closer look, the yellow color was not crystal at all, and it was still a piece of uncarved jade. Damn it, don't tell me he's a poor guy pretending to be rich. Dou Yao was so angry that he raised his hand to throw the jade pendant, but he couldn't bear to do so in the end. 5 silver was also money, and it could be exchanged for buns for a few days. Times were different now, even a copper coin was good for Dou Yao. Dou Yao reluctantly put away the jade pendant. Seeing that there were fewer people on the street and that there were no rich people, he didn't want to work anymore. He used the remaining money on him to buy a few pieces of sesame seed cake and a pot of wine, and continued walking east along the street. Dou Yao drank as he walked and gradually became drunk. He turned unsteadily into a secluded alley. There was a large courtyard at the entrance of the alley, and the people living in it were the lowest rung of the imperial city. Oh, Master Dou is back. Good evening, Master Dou. Master Dou drank good wine today. Did you make a fortune? The young and old men in the courtyard who didn't work laughed when they saw Dou Yao. Dou Yao had been living in this courtyard for 2 months, and usually called himself Master Dou, saying that he was the young master of a rich family, so the people in the courtyard loved to tease him. Master Dou, your wife went crazy in the house again today. A middle-aged man came over and said to Dou Yao, crying, screaming and smashing things in the house. The landlord came to see a few times, saying that all the furniture in the house has been smashed, and he wants you to pay for it. Dou Yao squinted his rat-like eyes and said, those pieces of broken furniture aren't worth much. I'll ask my shop to send a set of rosewood furniture to compensate him. The man thought that Dou Yao was bragging and laughed. Master Dou, you should go back and see your wife. She's caused quite a commotion today. Only then did Dou Yao stumble towards the innermost room. Madam, open the door. Dou Yao knocked on the door and shouted, Master is back, quickly prepare shark's fin and bird's nest soup for him to sober up. At the same time, a skinny woman with messy hair was curled up on a shabby bed in the room. When the woman heard Doyle's voice, she was so frightened that she curled up into a ball in the corner. Open the door. Open the door. Dou Yao's banging on the door started to get impatient. If you don't open the door, I'm going to kick it down. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked the wooden door open. There was only a wooden stick propped against the back of the door, and Dou Yao kicked it open with one kick. Entering the room, Dou Yao took a look at the messy room and the broken mirror on the floor. He had bought it when he was in a good mood after stealing some money a few days ago, but it was now in countless pieces. Dou Yao's heart was in a mess and his resentment soared. Without another word, he raised his hand and threw the bottle at the woman in the corner. Jing, Dou Yao cursed. Dou Yao scolded, do you still think you're some noble lady? You're just AF * King Broken Shoe. Dou Yao's words agitated Jin Fei, who had curled up into a ball. She leapt out from the corner of the room and started biting and tearing at Dou Yao. Dou Yao was in so much pain that he slapped Jin Fei onto the bed, pointing at her as he continued to curse. How dare you hit me? If I hadn't saved you, would I be in this state today? Instead of being the young master of the Dou family, I'm here to suffer with you and you dare hit me? The more Dou Yao thought about it, the angrier he became, and he began to beat Jin Fei on the bed. It was said that this pair of enemies had gotten together in the imperial territory after being afflicted by Immortal Coiling's aphrodisiac. The next day, before the two of them had even woken up, they were found by the Dou family juniors. The two of them were naked in each other's arms, looking very loving. Head Dou Yao's face was red as he straightened his neck and covered the two of them with scattered clothes, then waved for the crowd to leave. The crowd laughed, unwilling to leave. Just then the two of them opened their eyes, one in front of the other behind them. As soon as they opened their eyes, their minds went blank and they saw many pairs of eyes looking down at them. Jin Fei sat up in shock, and the clothes covering her slid off her body, revealing her naked body in a flash that blinded the eyes of the crowd. Feeling a chill in her chest, Jin Fei looked down and immediately let out a scream. When she turned to see Dou Yao, who was also naked, she screamed even louder. The crowd thought she had gone mad and could only knock her out. Under the interrogation of the Dou family's eldest son, Dou Yao confessed that he was still dreaming of marrying a rich and beautiful woman. The Dou family's eldest son, on the other hand, was clear-headed. He knew that his scoundrel brother had gotten into big trouble, and he didn't dare delay any longer. He immediately led the crowd to disguise Jin Fei as an injured person and carried her out of the imperial territory. When they returned to the Dou family, old Master Guo was also seething with anger. In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, he ordered Jin Fei to be locked up. Once she woke up, she would curse and swear in her room every day, saying that she would tear Dou Yao to pieces and raze the Dou family to the ground. Old Master Guo was utterly disappointed in Dou Yao, but he couldn't let the Dou family be dragged down by him. After thinking hard for a few days, old Master Guo decided to secretly get rid of Jin Fei, then send Dou Yao back to the countryside to look after the estate, never to return to the capital again. While old Master Guo and the Dou family's eldest son were discussing this matter, Dou Yao happened to overhear them. He couldn't bear to let a beautiful woman like Jin Fei die like this, but he also didn't want to be banished to the countryside. As a result, Dou Yao packed up some valuables that very night, snuck into Jin Fei's room and kidnapped her. Dou Yao initially fled to the countryside with Jin Fei, but after half a month, seeing that the commotion had died down, he couldn't bear the loneliness and returned to the capital with Jin Fei. Jin Fei's heart had been damaged and hadn't received any proper treatment. Her 5th-rank cultivation had been mostly dissipated, and Dou Yao, who was a 4th-rank blade master, couldn't resist at all. At first, Dou Yao fawned over Jin Fei, like a grandson, but Jin Fei beat and scolded him like a dog, humiliating him to the extreme. Finally, after one drunken night, Dou Yao's wolf instincts kicked in and he raped Jin Fei again. From then on, things got out of hand. Whenever Dou Yao drank, he would do it to Jin Fei. Gradually, Jin Fei's mental health began to deteriorate, and she became what she was now. "I've given up everything for you, but you've become like this. I'll beat you to death today and I'll be clean." Having been chased halfway down the street, only to have stolen a fake jade, Dou Yao had been holding back his anger all this time, and his blows became more and more vicious. He didn't even notice that Jin Fei's body was covered in blood. "What's going on today?" the people in the courtyard began to discuss. "Why hasn't that woman made a sound after such a long time? Is she going to beat someone to death? Should we go take a look? What's there to look at? That brat goes crazy when he drinks too much. Be careful, he might beat you up too." Just as the crowd was talking, 2 people suddenly walked in from the entrance of the courtyard. One was a young master, the other a middle-aged man. Both were dressed in embroidered robes and had the air of nobility about them. The crowd stopped talking and looked at the 2, but no one dared to approach them. The 2 of them didn't look at the crowd either, only sweeping their eyes across the courtyard as if searching for something. "This is the place." Wang Meng felt the message from the jade pendant in his hand and said to the confused Wang Gang, "The thief who stole the jade pendant is in that room in this courtyard." Wang Meng pointed to the innermost room. "Damn it, so it's here." When Wang Gang heard Wang Meng's words, he rolled up his sleeves and strode into the house. Dou Yao was finally tired and stopped to catch his breath, when he heard a shout behind him. "You brat, you've been found by your grandfather." Before Dou Yao could react, Wang Gang strode in front of him and slapped him onto the bed. This slap caused Dou Yao's nose to bleed and he sobered up. Covering his face, Dou Yao took a closer look and recognized that this was the man who had chased him halfway down the street at noon. He couldn't help but wail, "My lord, it's just a piece of broken jade, do you have to do this?" Wang Gang grabbed Dou Yao's collar and dragged him from the bed to him like he was carrying a chick, staring at him with his big eyes. "Where's the jade? Hand it over if you don't want to die." I'll hand it over." Dou Yao tilted his head and spat out a big tooth. He took out the yellow jade from his pocket and handed it to Wang Gang. "My lord, the jade is here, please spare my life." Wang Gang snatched the jade and threw Dou Yao back onto the bed. He pointed at him and said, "I'll spare your life today, but if I see you again I'll break your legs." Wang Gang was about to turn and leave when he heard a hoarse female voice behind him. "Wang Gang, save me." Chapter 164. Wang Gang found the voice somewhat familiar, but he couldn't tell whose voice it was. He turned in the direction of the voice, only to see a madwoman with disheveled hair and bloodstains lying on the bed. Wang Gang thought he'd misheard and was about to leave when the voice sounded again. "Find brother Wang Meng for revenge." This time Wang Gang heard it clearly. He turned to look at the woman in front of him who looked neither human nor ghost. "Who are you? How do you know my young master's name?" "Brother Wang Kuang has been killed." The woman seemed to muster all the strength in her body. "I'm the eldest daughter of the Wang family in the 4 kingdoms of Yu, Jin Fei." Wang Meng had been standing in the middle of the courtyard the entire time. He was dressed in embroidered robes and stood out in the midst of the filthy mess. Dozens of pairs of eyes stared unblinkingly at him. He casually glanced at the crowd of young and old men squatting or standing by the wall. Each of them smelled worse than the last and not a single one of them was clean. What a bunch of lowly commoners. As a pillmaster, Wang Meng's sense of smell had always been very sensitive. The sour smell in the air made him very uncomfortable. He covered his nose with his hand and called out impatiently, "Wang Gang, why aren't you coming out yet?" "Young master," Wang Gang's loud voice came from within the house. "Come in quickly, I found Miss Jean." "What Miss Jean?" Wang Meng naturally wouldn't associate the noble Jin Fei with this filthy courtyard. "It's the eldest daughter of the Jin family." Wang Gang hurriedly rushed to the door and waved at Wang Meng. "The eldest daughter of the Jin family, Jin Fei, Wang Meng frowned as he strode into the small room. "Young master, she's Miss Jean." Wang Gang pointed at Jin Fei who was lying on the bed. Wang Meng walked over to Jin Fei his face as dark as still water as he looked down at her. Jin Fei's bruised eyes could only be opened a slit and tears flowed down her cheeks. Wang Meng reached out a finger and brushed aside Jin Fei's messy hair. Her face was as swollen as a pig's, and it was impossible to make out her original appearance. But Jin Fei said, "Brother Wang Meng, brother Wang Kuang was killed by that bitch and Fei was also harmed like this. You have to avenge us." "You really are Fei," Wang Meng said with trembling lips. Jin Fei struggled to say those 2 words. Her breathing became ragged, her eyes rolled back and her entire body convulsed. She was on the verge of death. Quick, quick, help her up." Wang Meng's hand didn't come into contact with Jin Fei's body. Instead he turned to Wang Gang and anxiously gave instructions. Wang Gang hurriedly helped Jin Fei up, letting her lean against his chest. Wang Meng took out a bottle and poured out a life-saving pill for Jin Fei. Only then did Jin Fei catch her breath. "Brother Wang, save me." Jin Fei cried out. Wang Meng had Wang Gang hold Jin Fei's hand while he took her pulse with 2 fingers. Very quickly he retracted his hand and gloomily asked, "Who did this to you?" Jin Fei looked at the squatting Do Yao and gritted her teeth. "It's him. There was also Paizio. Paizio was the one who stabbed me in the chest. It's his fault that I'm like this." "How do you want to take revenge?" Wang Meng asked. "Slice off their skin inch by inch. Slice off their flesh, break their bones and then marinate them in salt water," Jin Fei said. "All right, I'll do as you wish," Wang Meng replied. Hearing this, Do Yao was so frightened that he collapsed to the ground and wet himself. "And who killed my brother Wang Kuang?" Wang Meng continued. Jin Fei's breathing quickened once more, and her eyes rolled back into her head as her body convulsed. "Fei, tell me who killed Wang Kuang?" Wang Meng asked urgently. It's Jin Fei couldn't say the last word. "Young master, quick, save her." Wang Gang cried out. "I can't." Wang Meng's hands were clenched tightly behind his back. His face was ashen. "Her heart meridian has already been severed. Even a high-grade life-saving pill won't be able to save her." Jin Fei's heart had already been pierced by Paizio's sword, but her heart meridian hadn't been completely severed, and with the help of a high-grade pill she had managed to keep her life. However, she hadn't received any proper treatment during this period of time, and the wound on her heart had worsened. Just now, Do Yao had been punching her repeatedly, and a few of those punches had landed on her chest, shattering her already fragile heart meridian. Wang Meng reached out to close Jean Feier's eyes as he murmured, "Yun Ru Yun." Wang Meng's eyes suddenly shone with a sinister light. Back at the Lin Manor, after Lin Qingchen had treated Duan Tianyun's wounds, Duan Tianyun was arranged to stay with the Zhou siblings. As beastkin, the three of them naturally got along very well. As the sky darkened, the two of them left the Lin Manor and rushed back to the Yun Manor. On the carriage, Yun Ruoyan asked her brother, "Brother, did you return that sachet to Sister Li Luo?" "No." Yun Ma Xiao shook his head. "I forgot." Yun Ruoyan naturally knew that her brother hadn't forgotten. "Brother, Sister Li Luo is also a beastkin, and she used a special method to conceal her beastkin eyes." Yun Ma Xiao had actually already guessed that Li Luo was a beastkin, but he was still confused about the beastkin eyes. Yun Ruoyan's explanation cleared his doubts. When Yun Ruoyan saw her brother remain silent, she leaned closer to him and asked, "Brother, do you like Sister Li Luo very much?" "Like her very much." Yun Ma Xiao couldn't quite put his finger on it. All he remembered was that the first time he had seen her, she had been veiled, and her slender figure had left a deep impression on him. The second time they had met was at the Yuelu villa, and Li Luo had still been veiled. Yun Ma Xiao had followed her into the dueling arena, and he had seen her jump into the dueling arena without a care for her own safety, battling the beasts with her low cultivation. Outside the Yuelu villa, Yun Ma Xiao had requested to see what Li Luo looked like. Li Luo had taken off her veil and turned around to look at him in the dark of the night. Now, whenever Li Mo closed his eyes, he could see her face clearly. And today, Li Luo's serious demonic appearance in the kitchen, as well as Duan Tianyun's fierce treatment of her, were all clearly etched in Yun Ma Xiao's mind. Yun Ma Xiao, who had never fallen for a girl before, guessed that this was probably what it meant to be. Yun Ruoyan looked at her brother's dazed expression and couldn't help but sigh. This was bound to be a difficult relationship. That night, Yun Ruoyan entered her pocket dimension. Tonight, Qiuqiu would be teaching her how to refine a new poison. "Qiuqiu, that soul-stealing pill is too powerful." Yun Ruoyan was very excited when she thought of Pei Zio's reaction after being poisoned. "I'm going to make a few more to protect myself." "Mistress." Qiuqiu couldn't help but pour cold water on Yun Ruoyan's excitement. "The soul-stealing pill is powerful, but it also has a huge drawback." "Drawback? What drawback?" Yun Ruoyan's smile faded as she looked at Qiuqiu. "The first drawback." Qiuqiu squatted down and raised its claws. "The target's cultivation can't be higher than yours. The soul-stealing pills you concoct as a 7th-rank blade master won't be effective against cultivators above that level." Yun Ruoyan nodded thoughtfully. When she had been refining the soul-stealing pills, she had felt that she had expended a large amount of spiritual energy. It seemed that the strength of the soul-stealing pill was closely related to the cultivator's cultivation. If the soul-stealing pill was only effective against those weaker than her, then it wouldn't be very effective. "The second drawback," Qiuqiu continued. "The soul-stealing pill is too complicated to use, and you have to put it in the target's food and drink when they're not paying attention. Such an opportunity isn't easy to come by, and the success rate is too low. In fact, if Pei Zio hadn't invited Yun Ruoyan to dinner, she really wouldn't have had the chance to poison him." "All right." Yun Ruoyan compromised. "In that case, teach me how to refine other poisons." "All right, then let's begin." Qiuqiu stood up and raised its front leg high. "Today I'm going to teach you how to refine a poison that's specifically targeted at those with a higher cultivation than you. This poison is odorless, colorless, and extremely difficult to detect. Once poisoned, you'll temporarily hallucinate and lose your ability to attack." "What's the name of this poison?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "It's called fog," Qiuqiu replied. As Yun Ruoyan heated up the cauldron with her spiritual flame, she watched as the liquid within slowly turned from red to green, then from green to yellow, and then gradually faded until it was as clear as water. Yun Ruoyan glanced at Qiuqiu, who motioned for her to continue heating up the cauldron. After about 5 minutes, a white mist began to rise from the surface of the clear liquid. Qiuqiu had Yun Ruoyan take out a transparent bottle that was specially designed to absorb the mist. Xiao sucked up all of the vapors from the liquid until there was no more mist left. Yun Ruoyan placed the transparent bottle in front of her eyes and saw that it was filled with a thick white fog. Mistress, if you encounter an opponent you can't defeat, wake Xiao up. Xiao will release the fog into the bracelet's pocket dimension, and mistress, all you have to do is grab the fog and throw it at your opponent. Xiao taught Yun Ruoyan how to use the fog. Yun Ruoyan imagined the entire process in her mind, feeling that it was a simple, efficient, and effective attack. Yun Ruoyan's sense of security instantly rose to a whole new level. Time flew by and soon 10 days had passed. During these 10 days Yun Ruoyan continued to train diligently. Perhaps because she had progressed too quickly at the start, her cultivation had stagnated at the peak of 7th rank. She had a feeling that she was about to break through at any moment, but she just couldn't. Yun Ruoyan was quite vexed, because she couldn't wait to cultivate her own sword so that she could soar through the skies like Li Mo and Yun Mo Xiao. Xiao told Yun Ruoyan that the reason she hadn't broken through was because she lacked an opportunity. Yun Ruoyan asked what opportunity it was, to which Xiao replied, "An opportunity to fight with all your might." You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.